Hey everybody, welcome to the very first video on my brand new Ultimate Comics Man channel. I will be starting a new spin-off. I've been really getting into comic books lately and everything related to that. So I felt like it's about time to start a new channel discussing this just because this is something that I've started to become very passionate about and I have some really fun ideas and maybe some future projects in mind. So I'll have to, see how that goes later on. But for now, this is the kickoff of a new channel. And I want to do a collab today with my good friend, of course, Austin, aka Horror Free for All. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. You might see on this handle that I'm going by my, I guess, overall media persona, Austin in the middle. I don't really upload all that much on my channel with that handle, but I try to when I can. But I'm excited to be a part of your inaugural video, Micah. I know how much you love comic book movies and comic book culture. I've grown up with comics myself, and it's hard to find people willing to actually talk about comics outside of like collecting them. So this is going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this because our first topic is something that, very well broad appeals to a lot of people. So we're going to be doing our top 10 favorite comic book movies, specifically comic book superhero movies. And so, again, this is something I've been passionate about for a while. I love superhero movies. I've loved them longer than I love comics because I've just gotten into comics this past summer. But, superhero movies have always been a big thing in my life. My dad's gotten me into them and, he loves them and just kind of passed on to me. And we're starting to get into an era again where we're getting a lot of pretty great comic book movies. So I am really excited to see where the future of this industry goes. And I wanted to, kick it off by us talking about some of our favorites. So might as well just get right into it. So Austin, I'll start with you for your number 10.
Okay, so the running theme I have for my list is that I love it when comic book movies show reverence. Now, when it comes to superheroes and reverence, it's really hard to come across. And what I mean by that is reverence to the source material. Like it's not taking all of these liberties at the hands of the mythos and the origins and how a character operates and even how they behave or something like that. I think all of my movies kind of fit that reverence for me that I'm always looking for. And I think my number 10, this whole franchise I really love. Um, I know some people don't think that every movie is great on the same level, but I think that this one, even though it's my least favorite of these three movies so far, it's still in my top 10, and that is Deadpool 2. Deadpool 2. I know that this movie, comparing to the trilogy, everybody talks about the first Deadpool movie and everybody talks about the third one because it's a love letter to 20th Century Fox and what have you. But Deadpool 2 to me is still one of those movies I could put on any time of the year and I can have a blast with. And I think out of all the movies, surprisingly enough, I think Wade Wilson feels the most like his comic book persona in this film. And he's so much fun. Right. And if you haven't seen this movie, Deadpool and Cable, there's a couple of series in the comics where Deadpool and Cable team up. And Wade, even in those series, he's still the wisecracking jokester of the duo, and Cable's the more stern, serious one. He is right Scott and Jean's son from this Days of Futures Past future. Or I forget what it is. Yeah, I think it's Days of Futures Past, if I remember correctly. That's the one. That's the arc with Bishop and all of that. Um, no, no, it's further down the line than that. Cable comes way later. So yeah, hold up. He comes from the future, let's just say, and he's not the type of person that you would think would work well with Deadpool. But this movie is so much fun, and then you get Domino, who's another X Factor member. All of these characters were in the X Factor comics back in the day, or X Force, and it's just super fun, man. I don't know what else to say. Like in terms of like X-Men movies, you get to see some obscure X-Men characters in these first two Deadpool movies specifically. And this one, you had Negasonic Teenage Warhead come back, I think. And what was the kid's name? He's an actual mutant in the comics, and he was funny in this. Um, I don't know, man. There's something about this. I'm gonna probably start rambling. I keep talking about Deadpool 2. Yeah, Deadpool 2, I love this movie, and I definitely recommend that you go watch it if you haven't seen the Deadpool films. You can probably start with any of the 3 and be fine. You don't have to begin with the first one, but there is a through line story that you kinda need to know from the first movie to go into the second movie, and you still need to know those stories before you go into the third. So I would recommend that you watch them in order, but you can still throw this one on by itself and be okay.
Yeah, that's an interesting pick. I've actually never seen the first 2 Deadpool movies. I've only seen Deadpool and Wolverine because my roommate showed it to me last year. But, I did love that movie. That was a lot of fun. So, I'd definitely be curious to check out the other 2 at some point.
Yeah, yes, I did.
All right. So, moving on now to my number 10. And I'm going with something that, I think a lot of people deem this as one of the best MCU movies. So, it might be controversial to me to only put it at number 10. But I'm going with Avengers Infinity War. And I, this movie is great. Like I remember back in 2017, having that theatrical experience and just the way the movie ended with the whole snap. That was just like one of the most like shocking moments I think in Marvel. Just that they were willing to go there. And like even though you kind of knew in the back of your head, like yeah, they're probably going to come back at some point. You had to wait for that finality when it first came out. So I feel like that's just an ending that just impacts you so much because of that idea for when you first see it in theaters. And just even without the ending, like the whole movie, I think is a very great and fun time. Just seeing all of these different Marvel heroes coming together to fight this, force of Thanos. I think Thanos is an amazing villain. He's probably easily probably the best villain the MCU has ever given us. And we'll have to see if he's ever topped. But right now, I don't think anything has beaten Thanos. Just like the way he's almost more of the main character in this movie. And even though he's doing something clearly evil, there's a bit of a sympathetic, you kind of makes you sympathetic for him in some ways. And it makes you almost believe in his cause and understand why he would maybe want to do this, despite the fact that it's wrong. And I think that's just a really interesting way to frame a villain is to have the movie from his perspective and make him again just make him understandable. And I think that all the character interactions are very fun. All the different side plots you have going on with different groups of Avengers doing different things to keep Thanos from getting the different Infinity Stones. I just think it all works together so well, especially for a movie with so many characters that you wouldn't think it would be good if you sounded it on paper, but the way they did it in this movie was very well balanced, well done. All the characters got adequate screen time and adequate writing, and I think overall they just yeah, I think they nailed it with this one.
Yeah, Infinity War, man. I mean, I remember seeing that movie in the theaters and being blown away because I knew the hype going into it. Everybody was like, "Oh my god, there's gonna be a two-part movie. I mean, we're gonna have to get this and then have to wait for an Endgame." And I went to see this, and I was like, "Okay, what are they setting up?" And I'm like, "They just went there." I mean, I remember leaving after the end of the movie shocked. I was like, How are they gonna bring these characters back? They literally just killed half the MCU." And I was like literally teary-eyed at that idea at the time. I think everybody was. You
Mhm.
know, like, what's going to happen moving forward? And we had no idea what Endgame was going to do, but thankfully, it kind of saved the Thanos snap from
Mhm.
staying canon. But at the time, man, you just had to be there if you weren't watching the movies at the time. You really did miss out because for that little short period of time between Infinity War and Endgame, that was the future. And it looked pretty bleak, but at the same time, everybody wanted to see Thanos get what's coming to him, and that's what made Endgame pop as much as it did, and that's why I think it's still the highest grossing superhero film of all time, right? Endgame? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think it hit like I think it surpassed 2 billion. I think.
Yeah. It was incredible. I was working for a movie theater at the time. I can tell you from memory, I think it was about a month straight. Any show after 6 o'clock, it didn't matter if it was a weekday or weekend. Everything was like sold out for like a month straight for Endgame. It was nuts. So yeah, I get why that's on your top tens.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on. What's your number 9?
So my number nine, I was born in the '90s, so I was right there in the beginning of the initial superhero movie boom. Starting with Blade, Blade 2, Blade Trinity, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. And this movie to me really hit me in my heartstrings when it came out recently. And yes, I'm going to be talking about Spider-Man No Way Home. I love this film. It's a love letter to all the hard work, blood, sweat, and tears that those former Spider-Man movies put into the character. And I love that the movie honored their in-universe lore and canon with their characters when they carried over into this movie, where they could have easily fumbled the bag. I love how they kept Tobey Maguire's character a jaded version of Peter Parker. I love how they kept his organic webs too. I love that he didn't have a happy ending with Mary Jane, right? And I love that they kept Andrew Garfield's version of Spider-Man, who is more like the comics, I feel, probably the most like the comics from all the movies, but he loses Gwen, he loses the opportunity to be able to say, I did this and I was able to save her, and he holds that to heart, right? And he lives with regret every day, which juxtaposises to Tom Holland's Spider-Man, who, for the most part in the MCU at this point, has had his friends intact. He's had these little small scale adventures, or I guess large scale if you want to call it that, depending on which movie. But you know what I mean? Like he's had his run-ins with some villains, but this was the first time where he gets to meet the real deal. And I think every this movie put all the fan theories to bed. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man villains are the best Spider-Man villains ever. You cannot beat Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin. There will never be another Green Goblin in cinema, I promise you. There will never be one because he's that good. And the fact that he got a swan song in this, Alfred Molina, who plays Dr. Octopus, got his swan song. They finally gave Jamie Foxx Electro the suit that he felt he should have had, right? And gave Jamie Foxx what he wanted. And that's why he came back to this movie. It was incredible. There was some fan service involving that. I think I wanna say there was a tease about Paul Giamatti's Rhino in there.
Mhm.
There are some callbacks to James Franco in there at times, if you were able to catch those, and even the, new Goblin from Amazing Spider-Man in the mix. I had a ball with this. I thought it was just incredible, and seeing all 3 Spider-Men working together at the end before they finally left and went back to their own universes as one last film, it made me think that maybe Sony should just revive all these universes. I mean, they got the Miles Morales universe with the animated films. I would totally welcome a Tobey Maguire reboot and have his own universe along with Tom Holland, along with Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. I think that would work actually. They need to stop making these supervillain movies and just go back to these different universe Spider-Man films. I think people would totally be in for that. And this movie proves that concept. I love this film to death.
Oh yeah, it's amazing, and I'll get more into my thoughts later because I have it a bit higher up on my list. But yeah, I think I agree with everything you said, and yeah, I do hope they revive some of these characters in some ways. Like I hope we at least get an Amazing Spider-Man 3. I think Andrew Garfield deserves that third movie after how that whole thing went out when the original Amazing Spider-Man movies were coming out.
Mhm.
And I mean, I would love to see a Spider-Man 4 though with Toby. Even though I will say he's probably my least favorite Spider-Man. I think he is still very fun, and I think he can still work very well as in a fourth movie.
Yeah, I can see that because Toby's Spider-Man, he's not quite on the pulse of Peter in the comics. He's like Sam Raimi-fied a little bit. You know what I mean? He has that Ash Williams kind of nature to him where, he's like overly serious, but then at some moments, like he gets comedic, jokes thrown in his scripts. And like, especially in Spider-Man 3, I think that movie becoming the eternal meme that it's become, like, it's like, it's kind of hard to shake that if you're going
Mhm.
to a Spider-Man 4. But I think that if they were able to, like, do an older Peter story and maybe he can take on I would love to see a Tobey Maguire set movie, but go into a new storyline with him, maybe dealing with Ben Riley or another Spider-Man, and he could be a mentor or something like that. Or if you wanna bring Miles Morales into the fold for Sony, like in live action, I would do Tobey Maguire's Peter. That's how I would do it, but that's just me.
Yeah, I agree there. And I think the main issue with my main issue with Tobey Maguire's Spider version of Spider-Man in particular, he's not very funny. There's a couple
Yeah.
moments here and there, but a lot of his like he doesn't really have that kind of quippy, fun, energetic nature that Spider-Man is supposed to have. I think that's my biggest issue with him. But yeah.
I missed the part
Anyways,
where
getting
that's my
into
problem.
I also though I unironically love Spider-Man 3. I don't care what people say. It's
Yeah.
my favorite of the Raimi trilogy. So
Oh, okay, well, that's a hot take, but okay.
all right, anyways, so my number 9 then, ironically enough, following up my number 10 is Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
I again, this is another movie that I think was just so hyped up, and it pretty much lived up to the hype in every way, in my opinion. I think this movie was just for how much you had writing on it because of the ending of Infinity War. I think they knocked it out of the park. Now, I think this movie was just again very well thought out, had a lot of fun and clever usage of the time travel elements, and I think it's really fun too how it kind of starts setting up some of the stuff that happens in the multiverse saga with Loki taking the Tesseract and some other things spiraling out of control there. I love the moments where you get all these big hero moments, with Steve Rogers getting to finally pick up Mjolnir after teasing that in Age of Ultron, or obviously Tony's big sacrifice at the end, kind of just culminating this multi-movie long character arc he was having. And I think it's cool as well to get to see Tony kind of live the life he always wanted to live after what happened with Thanos. And despite the tragedy behind what happened and his grief for losing, Peter and all these other people, it's almost cathartic for him because it's a way for him to get away from the Iron Man life and get him to settle down, have a family, just kind of live that kind of normal life that he was never able to. I think that's really good characterization for him. I think that just the whole opening of the movie where it's just so morose and so almost depressing in a way as they're still trying to get over what happened in Infinity War. Even during the 5-year time skip, they're still grieving about this. And the fact as well that they made it so that they were all basically dead for 5 years is also a really crazy thing to think about. And just the way they did it is really well done. And I know, like, they did have a couple missteps here and there. Fat Thor, he was funny for a couple jokes, but then he kind of got, did kind of mess up with the character. And then of course, the smart Hulk, which I actually kind of like Professor Hulk. I know it's a big hot take as well, but I think he's fun. I do hope we get back to Savage Hulk later on, though, with him in Brand New Day and stuff. But we'll see how that goes. But I think just again the storytelling, all of the little character moments you get, like when they're doing the time travel stuff and Tony interacting with Howard, or just the little moment of Steve seeing Peggy through the window and just kind of staying there, just staring at her for a bit, just like remembering everything he had and lost. And even just again, Steve Rogers' satisfying ending at the end where he takes back the Infinity Stones and decides to just live in the past with Peggy. And we see the whole, see him as an old man in the present day and just, him passing off the shield to Sam and just, it's a very impactful scene. I think there's so many moments like that in here. And of course, the final battle is one of the best final battles in Marvel. Just seeing the portals open up and seeing every single hero that was erased or maybe just not present earlier on come through to all have this big final battle was great. The stuff they did with Hawkeye was really good as well. This him becoming this murderer basically because of how grief stricken he was over the loss of his entire family. It's not like he just lost a few people. The fact that he lost every single member of his family in the snap is brutal to think about. Like, I can't even imagine how painful that would be for someone to go through. And just everything, it was just so well done. All the character sacrifices and deaths and just everything there. I just think this movie's a masterpiece. And I don't understand what revisionist history is happening here where people are suddenly turning on this movie, but I'll never understand it.
Yeah, I mean, I think people the modern argument I see is like, "Oh, Infinity War is so much better than Endgame, blah, blah, blah," and like, "Endgame did this that they shouldn't have done, blah, blah, blah," and I'm like, nobody cared about that when this movie came out. Like, everybody wants to say that these problems were there with the movie when it released. No, this movie was getting nothing but praise. Everybody was like, "This is the best superhero movie of all time." Like, I get what you're saying. So Yeah, great pick, dude. Like, I didn't put the Avengers Endgame or Infinity War in my top 10, but I'm glad you did because they were my honorable mentions. So, like, they would have been like right there at my number 11. So,
Yeah.
but I do have more reverence for some other movies more. Even though I do think that the Infinity Gauntlet adaptation they did in Infinity War and in Endgame was, for the most part, kind of cool. For what they were able to do there. So, as a fan of that series, I don't know if you've ever read the Infinity War or Infinity Gauntlet. I think there's another one, Infinity Saga. They're all kind of related.
Mhm.
You should check those out. It's incredible. It's probably my favorite Thanos story ever. So,
Yeah, I'll have to check that out at some point because I haven't read that. So
it's an iconic series. I remember, like, as a comic collector, when those movies before they were coming out, like Infinity Gauntlet #1 was like $100 book forever. I was like, I'm not paying that for that. I was like, no way. Even though I wanted the comic for my collection, I was like, no. I ain't doing that.
yeah. All right. Let's move on to your number 8.
All right. So my number 8 is technically a superhero movie, not really. This is going back to the early 2000s, and I kind of already brought up Blade. So I'm going to bring up, in my opinion, the best horror themed comic book movie based on a superhero character of all time. And that is Blade 2. Blade 2. This is by far my favorite Wesley Snipes movie. It's by far one of my favorite vampire action flicks. And there's a lot of great vampire movies out there, surprisingly enough. But Blade 2, man, this movie is scary. This movie has some of the best depictions of martial arts choreography in a Marvel movie I have ever seen. And it's outright incredible. This is continuing the arc that was set up in New Line's first Blade movie from I think '98. When Blade 2 came out, man, I remember people were like, the sky's the limit for the Blade franchise. Like, everybody thought that this franchise can go on for multiple movies because New Line back in the day was known for doing these darker, more gritty characters. And people were like predicting. I remember seeing on like the early days of the internet, everybody was like, oh, Blade's going to be like 4 or 5 movies. And then Blade Trinity came out. And then, yes. Even though I think Blade Trinity might be a guilty pleasure film for me, yeah, I know a lot of you people out there are probably like, "Dude, what's wrong with you?" So Blade 2, if you had to watch a Blade movie, if you had to understand why it was so hyped to see Wesley Snipes in Deadpool versus Wolverine, you need to watch Blade 2 over Blade 1. Even though Blade 1's a good movie, you need to watch Blade 2. You do yourself a favor and watch that, and watch it in the dark. It's incredible. I forget, it wasn't Deacon Frost. Deacon Frost was the first villain, so it had to be that one vampire villain that's a recurring character in the comics. I'm blanking on the name, but I know he was, I think, in Tomb of Dracula's comics. So when it comes to me, I might mention it if I can, but yeah, I love the crap out of Blade 2, man. It's one of my favorite vampire movies. And Micah, you probably haven't seen them. You should you should watch them. I mean, I guess they're, christened into an MCU proper now. So I guess, like, all the beauty about films like Deadpool versus Wolverine and Spider-Man No Way Home and stuff like that is that these former movies are now a part of the MCU, kind of. So they're
Mhm.
canon. So you can watch them. The Fox X-Men universe is canon too. So you need to
Yeah,
watch
I'd be
that.
interested to yeah, because I think the main reason I never saw them is because I've never been interested in vampires. Like, I think they're some of the least interesting, like, monster characters, but maybe it's because I haven't been exposed to much good vampire media, but
Well, the cool thing about Blade is that his whole origin is that he was born of a human mother who was bitten by a vampire the night she was giving birth to him. So his whole character isn't just that he's like a vampire hunter like Buffy. No, he has the vampire illness in him, but he has the day walking ability. So he can channel his vampire abilities when he needs to, like a superpower, but he uses this serum that's given to him by his caretaker to essentially control it, which is really cool. It's a really cool aspect to his character, and it makes him a little more morally gray than your average superhero. I mean, he's definitely a dark character. I mean, there's a reason why modern comics they put mature content warnings on them now, because I bet you kids like reading comics from the early 2000s, they're like, "Oh, here's Blade. Oh, he just cut the head off this vampire. Oh boy." Okay. All right, we're going there. That's why I
It's
love
no different than kids in the
superheroes.
'80s who grew up with slasher movies.
Yeah. I mean, I would give them a whirl, specifically the first 2. If you don't like them, you don't need to watch 3 then. But 3 does have an early Ryan Reynolds appearance, and it does have, Jessica Biel playing an original character to the film, Abigail Whistler. She's honestly probably the best part of that movie in my opinion, so, if you're gonna watch that, just make sure you watch the first 2 first. Do yourself a
Yeah,
favor. Alright.
yeah. Like, the one thing I know about Blade is just the MCU movie that's been stuck in development hell for who knows how long. It's
Oh,
apparently starting to actually be worked on.
the Mahershala
Who knows if
Ali
that's gonna be a
movie?
thing?
You know, I would love to see Mahershala Ali actually play Blade and people stop, like, joining the bandwagon. "Oh, Wesley Snipes the only Blade," or campaigning against the female, daughter of Blade idea. I'm like, "Dude, she's a character, just let them go with the idea. If it's bad, then it's bad, but we're speaking on things that don't happen yet." Mhm. You know, but I'm stoked to see him play Blade. He's a perfect cast in the world.
Mhm.
Perfect. Newt.
All right. So now moving on to my number 8. My number 8 is Spider-Man: No Way Home. So, my more deep thoughts on this movie. This is one of my favorite theater experiences of all time. Like, without a doubt, I maybe didn't get like the biggest crowd just because I went to like a smaller, more local theater, so we didn't get like the crazy like ultra fanboy crowds that some of these other theaters would have gotten. So I didn't get like the most of the theater didn't get like the big reactions that a lot of other ones did, but it was still just a fun movie. Just the hype around it was so massive at the time. And just, seeing the trailer, knowing we're getting like Alfred Molina's Doc Ock and Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin and all these classic villains was like such an exciting idea because they're such classic and iconic villains. And just like the questioning of whether or not Toby and Andrew would appear in this movie or not. I think it was pretty obvious they probably were at some point. But at the same time, you still would kind of doubt it because it's like, I don't know, it feels like that's such a big thing for them to do, and you would think if they were in the movie, they would just be brief cameos. So the fact that the biggest surprise was that they were once they were in the movie, they were in it for the whole third act. And I think that is so cool that they did that because they're not just glorified cameos. They are actual working characters in the movie that help contribute to the plot and flesh things out. And they also help Tom Holland's Peter Parker with his character arc. That whole scene of them on the roof of I can't remember which building it was that Peter was on after Aunt May's death. And they just each have that talk to Peter to try and calm him down after he's basically just wallowing in despair about what happened and basically wanting to kill Green Goblin because of, him killing Aunt May. And Toby just telling him, when my uncle died, I wanted the man who killed him dead. I got what I wanted and it didn't make it better. And then I think what really was like the most impactful part was Andrew Garfield, where he mentions that when he lost Gwen, he became this very vengeful, rageful person who kind of took on a much more different life because of his grief. And just both these guys just telling Tom this because they don't want him to turn out like them. And I think that's just such an impactful moment for these characters. And it really helps flesh them out even more than what we got in those original movies they were in. And there's so many great like even some of the fan service moments were still big plot moments for these characters. The whole scene of MJ falling down after Green Goblin, knocks her away with the bomb and he pushes Peter or Tom's Peter away. And like we all just like started panicking, you think she might die. And then Andrew jumps in and finally gets that redemptive moment where he gets to save somebody after failing to do so with Gwen, and just that look of like just overwhelming emotion on his face after he saves MJ was so gratifying and so well done. And it just further cements like Andrew Garfield is the best Spider-Man without a shadow of a doubt. Like the dude's acting abilities are impeccable. And I think there's just so many good moments there. I do think maybe the story set up at the beginning is a little wonky with Peter going to Doctor Strange to basically make people forget that he's Spider-Man, and then he, like, throws in all the little changes and stuff. I feel like that could have maybe been done a little bit better to try and get the multiverse story going, but it's a very minor thing overall. I think this movie is just so amazing, and you've covered a lot of the same points I did, so I feel like I don't need to go too much more in depth on it. This movie is just awesome, and I'll never understand again another movie that has revisionist history on it, where people are suddenly acting like it's a bad movie because it's a glorified cameo fest, and it's just like it drives me crazy because this movie's amazing, and everyone was saying it was amazing at the time, and it's just like I hate revisionist history with some of these movies, man.
Yep. I mean, I've heard it too about this movie, and I don't care what people say. I didn't put I didn't put any Sam Raimi Spider-Man films on this top 10, even though Spider-Man 2 and the original 2002 Spider-Man, to a degree, I wanted to. They're probably in my top 15. And that first Amazing Spider-Man movie with Andrew Garfield was pretty damn good. So, like, these films, people at the time, they were upset that the franchises that these guys built, like Garfield and McGuire, they ended on bad notes, and they wanted a good send off for these guys. And everybody at the time was like, "This is the perfect way to send off their characters if they wanted to keep it that way." And now people are like, "You know what? The movie wasn't that good because blah blah blah." They're just in here for fan service. I'm like, "Come on, dude." Everybody wanted this. It's a Spider-Man
Mhm.
movie. There's more Spider-Man than just Tom Holland Spider-Man. The D writing for Tom Holland Spider-Man, I don't get it, but I can understand it because he's the MCU Spider-Man, and we're getting a 4th movie. So,
Mhm.
but it is what it is.
Yeah, and I think, like, it's also just fun just seeing the 3 Spider-Men interact with each other are some of the most, like, fun moments of the movie, like, when they're just, sitting on the Statue of Liberty, just, like, waiting for the battle to happen and just, like, talking about who they fought and their powers and everything like that. There's just so many great moments between them that just makes the movie work so well.
Yes, I agree, and I love their chemistry too. You wouldn't
Mhm.
think that they would because they come from completely different directors choosing them for the projects and whatnot, but they had so much chemistry immediately. They all 3 channeled, like I said, they channeled their version of Peter so good, and they picked up where they left off, like, seamlessly almost. Like, Toby's Peter kinda having a bittersweet ending, right? And then you had Andrew Garfield having that really saddening ending. And then you have, Tom Holland's this innocent Peter, like, "Oh," and then he loses his Aunt May. And then he's like, "Oh, crap. I'm where these guys are at." That was incredible. I don't care what people say.
Mhm.
You cannot craft movie moments like that in the MCU. You can't. And
No.
that honestly, maybe next to another pick that's up next after this, was in my opinion the last great MCU movies that we've gotten. I think that and this next pick. So we'll get into that.
Alright, what's your number 7?
All right, my number 7 is Deadpool versus Wolverine. Okay, I know people have strong opinions about this movie. There's a lot of people who hate this, and I totally get why. Because okay, there's some things about it that are really forced, and you have to know stuff from the TV show to get caught up to speed with certain things. But I think you're honestly fine even if you don't watch that stuff. And then I get the whole thing about the jokes and the humor being overdone in the meta. Like they're like going a little too far in the pool. But going to the cameo fests. This is the movie I see people bashing over for that reason. Okay.
Mhm.
But here's the thing. 20th Century Fox is a dead franchise. Okay. We're not going back to those X-Men characters. And if we are, they're going to be rechristened into the MCU and there's going to be lots of changes. So that former canon, I don't think is going to stick the way people think it is. With that being said, this was a love letter to all of the fuck ups. Sorry if I curse, you can edit this out. To all of the absolute mess ups that Fox made with X-Men, Fantastic Four, and many other franchises that it had in its lap. Okay? And it deserves a roast. If you want to call this Deadpool roast the Fox universe, you can call it that. If you want to do Deadpool kills the Fox universe, you can call it that too. This is not a Deadpool versus Wolverine movie when you think about it, even though it is a buddy cop movie of Wade Wilson and Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, who's incredible as always in this film, being a ragtag group going on a, I guess, ill-fated adventure in a dead universe, trying to escape it to go back to Deadpool's home universe because he wants to save the love of his life. And the whole thing about the Wolverine that we knew in the movies beforehand, like up from X-Men 1 all the way through Logan, being dead in the opening scene, I've seen some hardcore Wolverine and Hugh Jackman fanboys absolutely going ham on the opening of Deadpool versus Wolverine because they're like, what they did to that original Wolverine was so overblown, so over the top, and disrespectful. And I'm just like, dude, come on, man. Like, get with the program. If you love these movies as much as you do, this is Deadpool's, time just to be like kind of poking fun. All right, it's not meant to be taken seriously. In my opinion, I actually like the Wolverine we get in this movie, the universe where he kind of doomed it. I like this Wolverine more than majority of the Wolverines we got to see in those original Fox movies. I think that his character is more gripping. I'm not saying that, once we get to like X Men First Class, Days of Future Past, Apocalypse, and Logan and stuff like that, that those aren't better. I think they are versions of the character, but I like him pretty much the most here, if I had to say. And I think he's a good blank slate character to build on if they want to keep Hugh Jackman in the MCU. I would totally be on board with this version. And seeing, X-23 come back, seeing Jennifer Garner's Elektra, seeing Wesley Snipes as Blade, seeing Chris Evans playing Johnny Storm. Even though like they gave him, I think one of the funniest moments in the MCU ever, and bringing in Professor X's unborn sister. God, what's her name?
Cassandra Nova.
Sandra Nova. I mean, she was an incredible uber threat, Omega level mutant. I wish that they were able to carry her character over because she is literally one of the most powerful beings in the universe. She would rival Franklin Richards.
Mhm.
She would rival a lot of things. Okay. And they kill her in this movie, one and done. So I'm hoping that maybe they can bring her back. Maybe Franklin can bring her back. That would be a good move.
Mhm.
Good move, MCU. But I love this as a love letter, and it was hilarious. And the song, the Madonna song, "When You Come Out,"
Mhm.
I never thought that song to be an epic song in my life, but the rendition in this movie is the most epic thing you can ever think of. The
Oh
climax
yeah.
is perfect in this, with the Deadpool horde. I loved every minute of that. I can rant on and on about why I love Deadpool versus Wolverine, but yeah, I love it. I don't care if people don't like it or think it's even the best Deadpool movie. It's my second favorite. So that should tell you that there's another Deadpool movie somewhere on my list. And I know, oh, this guy's a Deadpool fanboy. I don't care. I wear it with a badge of honor.
Yeah, like I love Deadpool Wolverine, man. Like this is one of the few movies where I don't remember laughing as hard as I did in this movie. My stomach hurt by the end of the movie from how much I was laughing. There's so many good moments. The whole opening sequence with Deadpool taking Wolverine's adamantium skeleton and annihilating the TVA with NSYNC's "Bye Bye Bye" playing is one of the my favorite opening sequences of any comic book movie. It was just so funny and, like, is it irreverent? Yes, but that's the point of Deadpool. He's supposed to be irreverent and make fun of these kinds of things. And what's even funnier is that it's a reference to X2, I think it's X2, where it's like show that Logan hated "Bye Bye Bye" when it played on the radio. So just the fact that not only are they desecrating his corpse, but they're also adding insult to injury by playing the song that he hated in that movie is just like double layers of hilarious. And then just again the whole fake out with Chris Evans, like where they make you think he's Captain America for the first two times, and then him all of a sudden just yelling "Flame on" is one of like that was so good. and just like having Pyro like suck his flames out and having him just land crotch first on the billboard. And then there's so many good jokes in this movie that I can't even name them all, but like that whole car fight sequence with Deadpool Wolverine is really funny. Like I think the one of the lines that I honestly would quote sometimes if someone like just accuses me of lying, I will actually quote, "I made it. I made an educated wish."
I mean, yeah.
I
That's
think
right.
that's one of my favorite like that's one of my favorite quotes in the movie.
I know,
And it's
that's
just yeah,
awesome.
there's so many good things in there that I think just work so well. Is
My
it
favorite
dumb?
my favorite joke is Gambit, the
Mhm.
unmade Channing Tatum. The fact that they roast in a meta way to the audience, like, "Dude, you need an acting coach. I mean, you need a dialect coach." And he goes, "No, that's my real accent." And he looks at the camera like, "Oh, good thing we never got this guy in a movie." It's like trying to make the fans like feel good that we never got a Gambit live action solo film. That was hilarious.
Mhm.
Because honestly, that's how he would have looked and acted in the film if it became a thing. So I think that would have been horrendous. So
Yeah. What's even more interesting is that he's apparently gonna be in Avengers Doomsday. So
I think because he's a fan favorite character.
yeah.
I honestly heard that, Wesley Snipes and all of them might be coming back too, which is I'm cool with that. If you wanna have this big whole meta thing for Doomsday, keep the ball rolling with, No Way Home. I heard a rumor that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield might be coming back too. I don't know.
I remember hearing a rumor I can't remember if it was for Doomsday or Secret Wars that they were
Secret
gonna
Wars.
be.
I know there's gonna be a lot of cameos or like I guess actual roles for
Mhm.
you guys in these films. I can't wait to see what they continue on with, but I welcome it. I welcome it. I do.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's gonna be interesting and really fun to see how that all plays out.
Yeah.
Alright, so moving on to my number 7, it is going to be Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one. I loved this movie. I think all 3 Guardians movies are very fun. 2 is the weakest, I think, but I think the first Guardians is just such a fun time. The chemistry between the characters is all great. This the whole I love the whole cast dynamic between them all. There's a lot of fun jokes. I mean, James Gunn always has a very good sense of humor and has a lot of very funny jokes. And he knows how to direct a movie. Like the dude is phenomenal comic book movie director. And you'll see another one of his movies on my list as well that just proves I think that this guy is, he's in the right hands in terms of where the future of comic book movies is going. But I loved, it's very bright, it's colorful. I love the fact that it uses a lot of these, old 80s and classic rock and pop songs and things like that for the soundtrack. I think is very fun. Chris Pratt is very hilarious as Star Lord, and I think he has a lot of great character moments there. The chemistry between him and Gamora is really good. Obviously, Bradley Cooper and Vin Diesel as Rocket and Groot, probably one of my favorite like comedic duos. But I mean, the standout though is Dave Bautista as Drax. I think there's so many good jokes set up with Drax in this movie. Him just the whole joke of him taking everything literally. He releases some really funny things when you talk about turn like different catchphrases and things like that. I think that the story is also very well done. While Ronan isn't exactly the most interesting villain, and he's probably one of the more bland villains of the MCU, I think that there's still a lot of fun to be had with, introducing one of the Infinity Stones. I think this is the second Infinity Stone to be introduced, or maybe the third, with the Power Stone. And I think there's a lot of great stuff with that. I haven't seen this movie in a while, but I just think the movie overall is very fun. There's a lot of bright visuals. I like the fact that there's like different planets they go on, and it's almost like a space exploring movie in a lot of ways. And I don't know, it just works in every way, in my opinion, and it's just a fun time.
Yeah, I've seen people nowadays, now that James Gunn put out Superman, given what we just got with Superman, with Guardians, the trilogy there, and with the Suicide Squad movie, people have been arguing what is James Gunn's superhero magnum opus? Is it Guardians 1? Is it Suicide Squad? Or is it Superman? And I feel like there's so many different camps with that, but Guardians 1 unequivocally is a movie that is a proof of concept that you don't need to have characters that are well known. You don't need to have characters that people have I guess heard of in the past or have bought historically tons of merch for. All you need is attention to detail, reverence for the characters in the comics, and a good story, and you literally can turn these nobody characters into somebodies. And overnight, James Gunn literally took the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise and made it probably one of the most popular franchises of the Marvel universe. And that's saying something. And these guys, nobody cared about Guardians in the comics back in the day. Nobody did. Even when I was growing up reading comics mid 2000s, even when I forgot who created the modern iteration with Star Lord, Gamora, and all of them on the team. Even though nobody was really talking about that series like heavily, people were still just reading, what was good, like Jeff Johns' Green Lantern, or maybe some Flash, or people were reading Spider Man, of course, Superman, Batman. Guardians was not on the forefront, but after that movie, Guardians became literally one of the most popular selling Marvel comics, and they still are today. Like, and Disney, you go to Disney parks, man, all you see is Guardians merch. I feel
Mhm.
like that's like the most prevalent one, maybe next to like Black Panther and Spider Man. So I think they were onto something, and it's a shame that they only lasted 3 movies. And James Gunn, I guess, packed his bags and went to DC. Good for him. You know, shame on Kevin Feige, but good for James Gunn.
Mhm.
I think what he's doing with DC, I welcome. Like I want to see what he can do. Uh, but yeah, ironically, my next pick is a James Gunn movie.
Oh, would that be?
Okay, so I guess Um, my number six goes to DC's The Suicide Squad. Okay, this is my favorite James Gunn movie so far. Um, and I know that it has its diehard fans. The reason why I love it the most is that he was able to capture what he was kind of doing in with Guardians, but he was able to kind of plug them in to a 70s pulp style movie, like I want to say quite grindhouse, but it has that essence to it. It kind of
Mhm.
feels like smut in some ways. It kind of feels like an anti-hero kind of tale. Like obviously these are super villains led by Amanda Waller, who what's her name? Oh, I can see her face. The actress who plays Amanda Waller, do you know?
I don't know, no, I haven't seen
Okay.
this movie in a while.
I see her face, but it'll come to me maybe. Viola Davis. She is fantastic as Amanda Waller. Like, say what you will about the Amanda Waller depiction in the CW universe on the CW shows. I think that Viola Davis is the Amanda Waller. There should never be another Amanda Waller. Just like there should never be another J. Jonah Jameson, as long as um, the guy. Why am I blanking on names?
J.K. Simmons.
J.K. Simmons. As long as J.K. Simmons is alive, they should have him playing J. Jonah Jameson, right? She's
Mhm.
that iconic. I loved the opening to this movie, getting to meet all these characters like Weasel and Polka Dot Man and all these like nobody characters that nobody's ever heard of, like Bloodsport, uh, what's the other one?
Peacemaker.
Peacemaker, played by John Cena. This motley crew. I mean, this is quite literally the definition of a motley crew, even more so than Guardians is, where these are villains that should not work together at all because they have conflicting ideas. They're all uber alpha mental types, and they like to clash with each other. And the fact that they were able to kind of use that banter and the writing was there with these characters really sold me on the premise. Even though I'm not going to lie, maybe like the first 20 minutes are kind of spotty to kind of set everything up. Like obviously the misdirect within the first 10 minutes can be infuriating. I heard some people say that they hated like the first 20 minutes of the movie. And if you're in that camp, I get you. But past that point, when the movie starts to click on and we get like the whole subplot with Harley Quinn and all of that, I thought that was fun. That's honestly my favorite Margot Robbie portrayal of the character. Um, and building up to the whole plot in like in the town, in the war torn town with like Starro being at the end, like the original Justice League villain character, and the whole finale involving that, and like King Shark and all that. I thought that was hilarious. King Shark is literally DC's equivalent to Groot, I guess.
Mhm.
So I don't know. Like this movie, just it was a smartly quick movie. It's a shame that it's a part of now, I guess, the dead universe of DC. If James was smart, I think he would keep Suicide Squad. Just saying. But yeah, I mean, like in my opinion, it's that, then it's Guardians, then it's Superman. Like, and those three are all fantastic movies. Superman, and I think Guardians would be my top 15. Kind of like those Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies I haven't talked about,
Mhm.
Adventures movies. They're all incredible films. But yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I think like the thing with James Gunn, I think we will at least see some of them because I mean, Peacemaker in a season two, apparently interacting with Guy Gardner, Green Lantern, and Isabella
Yeah,
Merced's Hawk Girl, and I think at least some of them are going to be there. Now, Peacemaker made a cameo in Superman. The one
yeah,
person though, I know I have a hot take with this, but the one person I hope they do recast is Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. I don't like her as Harley Quinn personally, and I think it's mainly just her take on it. It's not really the version of Harley Quinn I like. Like, I really hope that and also, I feel like she will be recast because she's too ingrained within the DC EU with Suicide Squad and Birds of Prey. So I feel like she will probably be recast. But like, I really want to see in the DCU, a more classic Batman the Animated Series style Harley Quinn, because that's the version of the character I love. So that's just my opinion.
yeah. I mean, yeah, the Paul Dini, Darwin Cook version of Harley Quinn is probably the most optimal. Like the classic outfit, the classic behavior, the accent, her being infatuated with Joker. You have to have Joker involved too. I think
Mhm.
better. That's why like the original Suicide Squad movie when it originally came out. This is another revisionist history thing. Tell me that when Suicide Squad, the original movie came out, that people didn't think that it was cool at the time, but then like with a very short amount of time, I wanna say maybe like 3 years, not even. Everybody started flipping a switch on that movie. They're like, "Oh, no, no, this is actually bad. No, no. Jared Leto's Joker, that was terrible," you know? People weren't saying that.
Mhm.
This one came out, like, way after the film was out. But I think personally for me, like, I didn't mind that movie until I watched James Gunn's take on it, and I was like, "Okay, this blows that movie out of the water."
Yeah.
I was like, "What the hell were they doing there?"
Yeah, I personally do think the original Suicide Squad is a bit of a mess, but like, and I hate Jared Leto's Joker, man. Like, Jared Leto's Joker is the worst.
I mean, it was unnecessary to go how it did. But, like, he was
Yeah,
just like, "What are you doing?"
yeah, that's why I'm so excited for the DCU. I cannot wait to see a classic comic accurate Joker, like, because we haven't really gotten that since Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, I mean, Jack Nicholson, he was probably the most faithful, I wanna say. So,
Mhm. All right, so now moving on to my number five. Ironically enough, we're staying in the James Gunn lane with Superman. I think this movie was phenomenal. And I was never a Superman fan before this movie came out. Like I think originally, like for a while, I didn't even care about this movie because I've always found Superman to be kind of a boring character. In pretty much every interpretation, like I hate Man of Steel. I come at me, internet. I hate Man of Steel. Okay, because it is just drab. It's boring. It is dismal. And from everything I've seen, at least I've seen some stuff of Superman, and Man of Steel is not Superman. I think Henry Cavill had potential to be a good version, but what Zack Snyder did with him just did not work because it completely contrasts who the character is supposed to be. And this movie, James Gunn's Superman, made me a Superman fan and actually made me want to read some of his comics and made me more excited for DC because it is just such a joyful movie to watch. And just, it's bright, it's colorful, it's everything that a comic book movie should be, in my opinion. Or it leans into those fantastical elements. It doesn't feel like the need to ground itself in reality like so many comic book movies seem to want to do ever since like the Dark Knight trilogy. And as much as I love those movies, and I do have one of them on my list, that is the one negative I have about them, is that they have left a permanent stain on the comic book movie franchise for so long, where every single studio felt like their movies needed to be grounded in some form of reality. And it just like, in my opinion, that limits everything about the comics. It A makes you change stuff and makes it more irreverent to the comics. B, it leaves out a lot of the fun of the comics. And it's just like, I don't know, it just doesn't work. So the fact that James Gunn just went all in with this, he made it probably the most comic booky comic book movie ever made, and in like the best ways possible. Just like, I think it's a very good tone. The pacing is, while very fast paced, it mimics the pacing of a comic book. I think that despite having so many characters, it balances them out very well. It's still very much a Superman movie, but you get a lot of great stuff. The Justice Gang, I think they're all really fun characters, especially Mr. Terrific. He was awesome.
Yeah.
And
I
I
love
love
Mr.
Nicholas, like, yeah, Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor was just was amazing, especially after how horrible we had it with Jesse Eisenberg's take
Oh
on the character.
god.
Like, to like to finally get a Lex Luthor that's just like so evil and hateful. Like, you hate this dude from like the moment he's on screen. He's so petty and so just spiteful against Superman for basically just existing. He hates that Superman is the one getting all this attention because he has the flashy outfit and the brawn and everything. And just the way they handle Lex's pettiness is very well done. The whole interrogation scene where he kills the guy who helped Superman in the street during the beginning fight sequences was so impactful and like honestly kind of heartbreaking to see like this innocent civilian just killed all for helping Superman a couple of times. And it really just shows you how evil and remorseless Lex is with some of his intentions and motivations. How he's so willing to just kill other people for the sake of his own vendetta against Superman. And I think it just makes him a very compelling villain. And it just works so well, especially when you see like learn of his background plans, to take over Jaranpur along with Baravia and have his own little country basically for the sole reason to take down Superman. This dude has, again, this is like the pettiest level of pettiness I've ever seen, where he's willing to just literally invade a country and have a country named after him and do all this stuff just to take down one person that he hates. I think that's just it's both entertaining and also just very, in some ways, believable to how some like modern leaders can be. And I think it just works so well, and I think that, the side plots and everything work really well. I think there's a lot of really fun moments in it. I think that, David Corn Sweat just nailed it as Superman. Like, he is the best live action Superman in my opinion. Christopher Reeve was awesome as well and iconic, but I think David Corn Sweat he just nailed it with that. He's very charming, he's very charismatic. He gives that like, classic big blue Boy Scout Superman where he doesn't really curse unless he's like quoting somebody or something, and he's
Yeah.
just saying, little things like golly and just other things like that that just really make him like endearing. I think he also has great chemistry with Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane. I think they both, I think they're the best portrayals of those characters, especially after Henry Cavill and Amy Adams. Both great actors on their own, but they had zero chemistry in any of those movies. And I just love everything about this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem with coming out of the DCEU with James Gunn, with starting with Superman, obviously is the naysayers being like, Henry Cavill was my Superman. If you're on that bandwagon, you're probably not going to like this movie. If you're a fan of Man of Steel, this is pretty much the polar opposite film you're going to get for a Superman take. But I had to agree. I had to agree with what you said, man. This movie makes the comics relevant. It makes the comics feel like there's reverence. It's not irreverent, there's reverence there because you have, all of the love letters like Fortress of Solitude, Kara, you have Crypto. I mean, you have all these characters, even the robot. Well, I forget
Mhm.
its name, but that's there too. Like yeah. I mean, like literally so many characters in the mythos of Superman, and they probably could have even added more, to be honest. I think James Gunn teased he wanted some Bizarro teases in there, because he wants to use Bizarro as a character later on. I think that'd be fun. I think that'd be a wild movie if he was Bizarro was the main villain, but Bizarro World would be fun to go into in the movies, and James Gunn is the guy that would do that, y'all. I mean, he took Guardians to Ego the Living Planet. I mean, come on, man. He'll bring Superman to Bizarro World. So I can already see that coming for Superman too. But yeah, I have to say, like, you know, for me, I think where the movie kind of lost me a bit though, was the whole thing with I really know how to put this. I don't feel like James Gunn was at his funniest with this. I
Mhm,
didn't really laugh as much with this movie like I wanted to. Like, but like the Guardians movies, I laughed my butt off because you have Dave Batista there. You have guys that have good comedic timing. Like Chris Pratt and Dave Batista, they're hard to kind of top.
mhm,
But then even like you have John Cena. John Cena's hilarious in the Suicide Squad. I don't really feel like there was like a standout character in this movie, like with the humor that was attempted. And I kind of wish that was there because I don't know. I grew up watching James Gunn movies like Slither and all of that. So he has an unorthodox sense of that when it comes to humor. But I don't know. I guess I set my expectations too high with that. And I do feel like there were certain aspects of the film that, I felt weren't too too ingrained in the comic nature of things, we're talking like adventure comics from the '60s Superboy kinda stuff.
mhm.
So, I felt that energy from the film at times. Not saying that that's a terrible thing to the film, but I do feel like I would say maybe people need to give this film maybe 5 years to see if it
Mhm.
ages well. But I totally get it. Like, if this is your favorite superhero film in the past like 5 years, I get that too. So,
Yeah, I think and also, like, I remember seeing a fan theory as well that'd be interesting is what if Ultraman becomes Bizarro because he was sucked
Ultraman,
into
yeah,
that black hole? Mhm,
yes, I saw that and I was like, that's a perfect setup because the black hole
mhm.
is taking you to Bizarro World. That's what I think that's gonna happen.
Yeah. And also, yeah, it just makes me excited for the future of DC as well. There's so many projects I'm excited for, like Clayface. Having a R-rated body horror movie for Clayface is just such a genius idea. That
And
makes me
Mike
really
Flanagan's
excited.
associated with that too.
Mhm.
That's gonna be awesome. I bet you it is.
I know, and honestly, like, if that movie is good, I do kinda hope they give other Batman villains, like, solo movies. Like, I would love to see a Poison Ivy movie. We need a good live action Poison Ivy. After Uma Thurman's take in Batman and Robin, I love Poison Ivy as a character, so I feel like I really wanna see a live action version of her done right, especially now with the whole fantastical elements that we're getting into with the DCU. And it also makes me excited for DCU Batman. Like, DCU
Yeah.
Batman has the potential to be, like, one of the best live action Batmans, if it's done right.
Yeah. All right. So what number are we at? Number 5
Yep, number 5.
for me.
Yep,
Okay. So you just did your number 6.
yep.
Okay. So my number 5 then. All right. This actually goes to a film of a character not a lot of people know about. In my opinion, I think that this is a fantastic film. I think this is a fantastic film. I'm a massive fan of Indiana Jones and swashbuckling adventure movies. This character is not a Marvel character, it's not a DC character at all, but I think this is just a fun, well-made, beautiful-looking film. The Phantom.
Mm,
From the '90s, The Phantom, Billy Zane's Phantom. Look, I get that this film's a cult classic, I guess. This is not a popular superhero film. It's not, if I'm being honest. But what I love about it, man, is that it feels like Indiana Jones 4. Like the true Indiana Jones 4. If you love Raiders of the Lost Ark, Temple of Doom, Last Crusade, watch The Phantom as your fourth Indiana. That's all you need, man. This has probably the best reverence for the source material of a character I've ever seen in comic book media. This literally feels like a Phantom comic strip or comic book that you would find from like King Comics back in the day. The publisher that put out like Flash Gordon stuff. You know, that's hokey stuff for the most part. Like the Phantom, he's not really a character that people take seriously historically because he was created back in like the pulp ages. And he's like a bygone relic almost. But in the '90s, they had a field day with trying these pulp characters out in films. This is my favorite one. I don't know what else to say. Xander Drax, played by Treat Williams in this movie, plays the most over the top movie villain I've ever seen. And it's so campy, it's perfect. It's so campy. I have no words. I mean, you have Kerry Torigawa in this movie, I think. The guy who played Shang Tsung in the Mortal Kombat movie, or the granddad from Johnny Tsunami. I think he's in this. He plays a sword wielding Mandarin folk guy in the film. This has a lot of action sequences that were done non CGI. There was actual stunt coordination with like bridges falling down from like between two cliffs, and people riding on top of airplanes and aerial maneuvers. People like trains, jumping from point A to point B across a moving cargo ship, stuff like that. I mean, this is a swashbuckling action adventure movie through and through. It's not the most like if you're used to MCU storytelling and like this whole like deep hitting message or like this meta fan service thing that you come to these type of movies for, you're not really gonna get that here. But like I said, if you go into this with the mindset that, hey man, I just want to like a good throwback kind of film to a bygone era of action movies that, superheroes really spawn out of when you think about it, this is a ode to the genesis of what is a superhero film, or a superhero comic for that nature. Like I said, not a big fan of the Phantom comics, but I love this movie. Simon Windsor, I think, delivered honestly in the top 5 category for me for the best cinematography movie I've ever seen. I mean, like the shots, the angles, the color correction, everything in this film is perfect. I don't know how to describe it when it comes to those technical abilities. Michael, you should watch this because I know you're a film buff. Watch this seriously. Get yourself a nice scan of the film too, and watch this on a high definition experience. I mean, it will blow you away. Now I know people don't like Billy Zane. People say he's acquired taste. I'm a massive Billy Zane fan. I love Tales from the Crypt presents Demon Knight. I don't love Titanic all that much, but I love him in Titanic. He's great in this. Christy Swanson, the girl who played Buffy the Vampire Slayer from the
Hmm.
original '90s movies in this. I think that this is honestly my favorite role next to that for her as an actress. Even though she's in Big Daddy, but she's not really there. So I don't know. Like, um, I always want to like tell people like this is my white horse for superhero films. Like if I had to pick my darlings, obviously there's way more that people probably be like, dude, there's so many other films that deserve a top 5 spot, man. But I picked this one just because I can literally this is another one of those movies I can throw it on at any time of the year and I'm happy watching it. Especially when I'm binging Indiana Jones. This is always the movie I put on right after Last Crusade. You should try it. Seriously,
Yeah,
it's so good.
yeah, I'll check it out at some point. Sounds
Yeah,
interesting.
should check it out. Especially because like we've mainly been talking about Marvel and DC. That's obviously to be expected. I almost put more indie stuff on my list. I thought about putting some Hellboy. I thought about putting that Dread movie. Great films. But I chose this one just because, like, if I'm being real to myself, this is what I kind of like. I'm a massive fan of Captain America, the first Avenger. I wish that we had an alternate reality where we had a series of films set in World War II days. We had The Invaders, we had Namor way earlier on, we had the original Human
Mhm.
Torch way earlier on. We could have had all of these pulp style adventure films, fighting like, Nazis in the air, fighting the Japanese submarines. That would have been awesome. I would have literally been like in every movie. I probably would have seen if there was an Invaders movie. I probably would if it was great. I probably would have went to the theater 10 times to see it. I'm not kidding because I love this time period, and it does not get enough exposure in Marvel's golden age. Say what you will, say how campy it was, say how corny it is. It really is. But tell me that the one thing they didn't get wrong here was the true straight testosterone heroism. I mean, like they are just beating people up senseless. It's action, it's riveting, and that's why people read comics back in the day. They literally read them just to watch these guys beat the crap out of some people. I mean, that's
Mhm.
that's what it is. And meanwhile, DC with Superman was doing some, semi corny stuff with him going to save the day in Metropolis, and then Batman was the brooding guy. So, that's what you had back then. But Marvel should have done that. And the Phantom is my call to action. Marvel, bring back World War II era films. I'm telling you, people would love that shit.
All right. So moving on to my number five. I feel like this can be a hot take to some people because some people will usually herald this as like one of the greatest comic book movies of all time, and if you don't put a number one, it's blasphemy for some people. But my number five is The Dark Knight. And yeah, I think this movie is a masterpiece. It is probably like film in terms of like filmmaking, script writing, and everything. It is one of the greatest comic book movies of all time. And if it's in my top five, it's still very high. I think that all the performances are really great. I think the storytelling, taking a lot of inspiration from Batman: The Long Halloween. Apparently, I still have to read that comic, but yeah, if I've heard, I think Nolan took a lot of inspiration from that story, especially with the Two Face storyline in this movie. I think it's all well done. I think all the cast give great performances. Not the biggest fan of Maggie Gyllenhaal as Rachel. I definitely think I think her name is Katie Holmes. I think I liked her a little bit better. But I think, obviously you can't go with this movie without talking about Heath Ledger's Joker. Like the dude gave one of the best villain performances of all time. And I think while he is still phenomenal, it holds me back because he's not as reverent to the comics as I would have liked.
Mhm.
Because as much as I love him, he just doesn't feel like the classic comic book Joker to me. And I think that's what holds pretty much every like the Nolan films and even the Batman. That's what holds those movies back for me is because they don't pay reverence to the comics in the ways that a lot of people probably want. Because they feel the incessant need to ground Batman in a reality that, is very much exactly like our reality. It eliminates all of those fun, fantastical elements of the comics. You can never get some of the villains, like Man Bat, Poison Ivy, Mr. Freeze, Clayface. It eliminates all of those really fun, fantastical villains. And then when it does adapt some of the more fantastical villains, it takes away all the stuff that makes them cool, like Ra's al Ghul in Batman Begins. They take away all of the immortal sorcerer Lazarus Pit stuff from him and just makes him a generic, you know, leader, I guess, of the League of Shadows. I think the most reverent is probably even if it's not very reverent is Scarecrow because at least that's a character you can that his powers are already kind of grounded in a sort of reality to the point where you can make that work. Joker in some ways you can do that with, but I think they went a little too far with Ledger's Joker and grounding him. He doesn't do a lot of the fun. He isn't. There's none of the fun elements of Joker in this movie. He had some funny lines here and there, but overall, they definitely lean more again into that kind of psychotic, criminal side of Joker that isn't really much there in the comics. Like, yes, he's the clown prince of crime, but they eliminate all of the fun, hokey, kind of silly aspects of Joker that made the character so beloved and iconic. And then I think it just doesn't really work as well. And of course, Dark Knight Rises with Bane getting rid of the Venom and just having him be a generic buff dude with this gas that calms his pain or whatever. And it's like, again, it's just like it just defeats the purpose and the fun of these villains. And even in movies like The Batman, like they almost take the Riddler and ground him too much. Like to the point where he doesn't feel like the Riddler at all.
Uh-huh.
And like again, random going on here, but anyways, going back to the prices of Dark Knight, I think that Aaron Eckhart as Harvey Dent, phenomenal, very well done. His whole arc into Two Face, I think, was handled so well, and just his performance is great. Just seeing this, the White Knight of Gotham, have be corrupted and just torn down by everything the Joker does. Where kidnaps both of them, kills Rachel, manipulates Harvey into pursuing this life of crime and pursuing this life of chaos and chance. And I guess that's two different things, but kind of having these two dichotomies of the villains, having Joker be more of an agent of chaos, while Two Face is obviously more of a chance based villain. I think is a really fun dichotomy, and I think like Aaron Eckhart's Two Face deserves way more praise than he gets. It's just a shame that he was overshadowed by Heath Ledger's Joker. No, I feel like he should have carried on to Dark Knight Rises. I don't think they should have killed him off in this first movie. He has so much potential to be such a great villain, especially to be like a main villain in a later movie, that I feel like it was kind of wasted, but still phenomenal performance. Christian Bale, he's great Bruce Wayne. The Bat voice is silly, but everything else about his Batman is great. And again, I just think obviously Christopher Nolan is a great filmmaker. You know, he does a lot of he's amazing with the camera work. All the practical stunts they did were phenomenal. That whole truck flipping sequence is one of the best like practical stunts I think they've done in a movie like this. And there's just a lot going on in it, and it's all masterfully done. Great camera work, great soundtrack by Hans Zimmer as usual, and of course, great performances. Even if they're not exactly the versions of the characters I would like to see, they still are phenomenal performances for the movie that we have. And so, yeah, I still think this is a great movie, despite my grievances with it, kind of what it influenced and what it did later on to the future of Batman.
I have a hot take, like pretty much a sizzling one about Christopher Nolan's Batman movies. And that is, to me, I've always viewed these films as what Stanley Kubrick did to The Shining. But I get why a lot of casual moviegoers and cinephiles and all that love Dark Knight. To me, over the years, I've kind of fallen out of love with the film. I've kind of fallen out of love with pretty much the whole Nolan trilogy. And that's mainly because of the reverence of the characters.
Yep.
And it's just like, like here's the thing. I love Heath Ledger's interpretation of Joker. I think he evolved the meta of the character and what people thought the character could go to. Before that, Alan Moore was really the only person in the history of comics to really play around with the idea of going far with Joker. But Heath Ledger literally personified what it was like to be psychotic in that role, right? I mean,
Hmm.
there's like literally, I can totally understand why Joaquin Phoenix is, people say, oh, he will never live up to Heath Ledger. Or, even though Jack Nicholson was iconic, Heath Ledger still was Joker for cinema. I get that. He was next level, and that was easily his best performance of his entire career. And he won an Academy Award that year deservingly. Posthumously, though, because sadly he passed away, but it is what it is. Like, I understand why people love these movies, but to me, my Batman, my reverence is with the first two Batman movies, 89 and Returns.
Hmm.
Those Tim Burton movies, no offense to Joel Schumacher and the films he made. Well, actually, there is some offense there, but those Tim Burton movies, even though they took some liberties, especially with Returns, I would say Batman Returns honestly might be my personal favorite Batman movie. Personally, I don't know if that's a hot take. I know there's a lot of people who love that movie. I know not a lot happens in it, but it's a fascinating character study of a film. If that's what you're coming for. Like, but holy crap, man! Like those two movies, I would watch any day over the Nolan films. I'm not, I've seen the Batman with Robert Pattinson maybe once or twice. I watched the Penguin show. I thought that was probably way better than the Batman movie. But yeah, I'm excited to see what this Batman universe is going to bring. I hated the second Joker movie that just came out. I thought that was terrible. So to me, I kind of wish they went back to basics with Batman a little bit. I was not a fan of Batfleck at all. No offense to Ben Affleck fans. I know, some people love Batfleck. I could care less. Batman versus Superman, good riddance. Um, that movie just needs to be forgotten. In Justice League, Zack Snyder's Justice League probably is my favorite movie. Like his take on Justice League, given what he was doing with the Batman character and Superman specifically, his vision of Justice League is my favorite film that he produced. I know most people would say Man of Steel, ironically, but Man of Steel is then again, its own rabbit hole. But anyways, like like I get why Dark Knight would be on most people's list. It's just not on mine. I can understand why it's number 5 for you because I think, given what we've talked about before, I definitely do think that the films I think you're going to put above this deserve it over this. So
Yeah. And like the ironic thing as well, you talk about Batman Returns, it's really funny. Nolan and Reeves want to ground the fantastical villains, and Burton fantastified the grounded villains with Penguin and Catwoman.
I know.
It's like the two most grounded villains in the Batman universe, and Burton makes them fantastical, ironic enough.
Yes. I think that that movie is, I wanna say a masterpiece, but I definitely think that it's an overlooked film in the grand scheme of superhero films. Like, people really need to go revisit Batman Returns and,
Yeah.
just watch it for what it is, 'cause it's a fascinating film. Even though it has its
Yeah.
slow parts, it does have its problems, but it's a fascinating movie.
Yeah, I mean, I actually recently just watched both the Burton movies with my roommate, like, this
Oh,
week,
yeah?
so they're
What do you
very
think
fresh
about
in
it?
my
Did you like
mind.
'em?
Oh, I mean, I've seen them before, but yeah, I like Batman Returns. I definitely you'll see the first one much higher up on my list 'cause I
I
definitely
can
prefer
like
the first one, but I do love Batman Returns. I love how, like I love that Tim Burton was off the late chains, and he was, he made it very dark. It was a very dark movie, and sadly, like, it being dark did lead us to the curse of the Schumacher era, but and, like, it also what pains me the most is hearing Tim Burton's ideas and, like, ideal castings for future movies and, like, knowing what we could have gotten. We could have gotten a Robin Williams Riddler. We could have gotten, Billy D. Williams as Two-Face. Apparently, he was eyeing Gina Davis as Poison Ivy. And according to rumors, I don't know how true this is, but from what I've heard, he was gonna do Patrick Stewart as Mr. Freeze.
Oh, that would've been actually really good, I think, because, you know, if they went not the Schumacher costume, they went the traditional Mr. Freeze costume, that actually I think would've slapped pretty hard with Patrick Stewart.
And then I think that, yeah,
So,
I think it's just so sad knowing what we could have gotten with the Burton verse.
I know, man.
It's and apparently even like I think there was an idea because there's like a series of comics called Batman '89, which is like a kind of a tie-in like sequel continuation to the movies. And
Yeah,
apparently there was even plans to have Madonna be Harley Quinn in those
yep.
movies. And like it's just like it would have been and those that sounds so awesome and like what we could have gotten versus what we did get is just
It's a shame, man. You know, the politics of filmmaking back in the day really did ruin all these great ideas. Maybe the one that it ruined the most that I actually wish they ruined was the Nicolas Cage Superman. I didn't need to see that.
no.
Given what I heard, I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is not Clark Kent. If they would have tried to pull that off, I think that that would probably be the most hated movie of all time.
Yeah, it would have been bad, especially like the look of Cage's Superman with the long hair and everything. It's just like,
There's
why?
people that try to defend that online, and I'm like, dude, no. Seriously, do you want to see a skinny Nick Cage playing Clark Kent? Are you serious?
Yeah. It's like
No,
I love Nicolas Cage, but no.
not as much. Not as Superman. I mean, honestly, Nick Cage, he can play. He could play a General Zod. I would buy
I can
that.
see him do Zod.
I can see him playing Zod, but not Superman. No, 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 no.
Mm,
That's the wrong cast there.
no. Yeah. All right. Anyways, moving on. What is your number four?
All right, if we haven't gotten to it, we're going to talk about it now. I've been teasing it all video. The original Deadpool. The original Deadpool. Okay. You know, some people might be like, all right, this dude has bad taste, man. Oh, okay, look, okay. Deadpool to me is a wholesome movie. People don't give this movie enough credit. This is a very wholesome movie with good character arcs, sad, gut wrenching emotions in the film, and the whole journey of Wade and learning, about his mutant abilities and whatnot might not tie well at the time to the other stuff he had in the 20th Century Fox universe. But hear me out. Look what the hell they did to him in Wolverine Origins, okay? Fuck that movie for a Deadpool movie, okay? I totally get why Ryan Reynolds he wanted to play this character. His lifelong dream and to be a movie star, if he were ever to play a comic character, he wanted to play Wade Wilson. He got his wish after the big mishap of playing Green Lantern. Thank God that character went out of the woodwork because we got this film, and this is probably my second favorite film for comic reference of all time. They completely, and I mean completely, nailed the character of Deadpool down in this film. even though Ryan Reynolds definitely put his spin on it, you can definitely
Mhm.
see his humor laid in there. I don't think Wade Wilson quite got as raunchy at times as he does in this film in the comics, but this was a love letter to the character that basically got popular when Joe Kelly started taking over the character in Volume 3 of Deadpool. And this is the iteration that everybody talks about. And why Deadpool's become a pop culture icon is because of this movie. Really? I mean, like this movie's so great. It's a fun anti-hero movie. It's a tale of vengeance. It's a tale of tragedy, all told in a bow. And I love how Wade is a character that he's a bad dude, but you're made to love him. He's kind of like a Dr. Chalice from Halloween 3 or the guy from Stephen King's Night Flyer, but in the superhero lanes, like he's not he obviously Deadpool, he wields swords and he cuts people up, he shoots people dead. I mean, like this guy is not a hero, but he is to somebody, right? And I guess the somebody that involved is the person closest to his best self interest. I mean, but he does go. I mean, what they do with Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead in this movie is hilarious, and them like trying to help Deadpool, and they're like, come to the Xavier Institute. He's like, what? Be with a bunch of freaks? No, like he's obviously the biggest freak, and and what have you there. I mean, say what you will about maybe Deadpool's legacy and how well these movies will age in time. But I don't think people would ever get tired of this. This is, I think, going if this ever does fall out of favor with people, I say at the very minimum, it would stay as a massive cult classic. I guarantee
Mhm.
you, in 2050, people are still going to be seeing Deadpool costumes for sale at Halloween stores.
Mhm.
This character's gonna go nowhere. They make too much money. I honestly think we're gonna get way more Deadpool because Deadpool and Wolverine sold a lot of butts in the theaters. Say what you will, Deadpool's here to stay, baby.
Mhm.
I'm willing to ride the Ryan Reynolds train until maybe they want to give it up to that. What is this guy, Matt Rife? I think some people said that Matt Rife would be a funny Deadpool if Ryan Reynolds ever want to give him up. And I was like, you know what? You might have a point there, but I don't know. I don't know. I haven't seen much of his comedy, but I love this film. I watch this film at least 3 times a year, so that's just, I love this thing.
Yeah, it's really interesting though, like knowing like Deadpool's very raunchy, crass style of humor. It's interesting how they're gonna do him because apparently he's gonna be in Doomsday. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be interesting to see a toned down Deadpool.
See if they decide to tone him. Oh, well, because it's PG-13, probably, so they're gonna have to.
Right. There's no way they would make Doomsday an R-rated movie. They'd be kind of shooting themselves in the foot there.
Well, obviously they're limiting ticket sales that way, but then again, there's there's R-rated movies in recent years that have cracked over, I think, what 500 million. So I
That's
mean,
true. Yeah.
so
I think the problem with that, yeah, the problem would just be with that they'd be alienating half of their audience.
yes, and they'll be preventing half their audience from being able to go buy tickets without their parents.
Right.
So that's why, we get it, people. We're not stupid. I mean, you can't just put Deadpool in a movie and make it rated R just because he's in it. I mean, like, you have to tone him down a little bit.
Yeah. But also, the one thing we need answers to, why was Thor crying in Deadpool and Wolverine? I really hope we get an answer to that in either Doomsday or Secret Wars.
Yeah, I want an answer to that. Not sure we're gonna find out.
All right. Moving on to my number four. And I know this is probably gonna be another hot take for some people because there's a very passionate crowd of people on the internet who hates this movie, hates this iteration of the character because it replaced their beloved, iconic one they grew up with. But I love this movie. It's my favorite movie of this character, and it's The Amazing Spider Man. I love this movie. Like, I know a lot of people don't like it because it replaced Tobey Maguire's Spider Man 4 and all that stuff, and they grew up with that era. This is the Spider-Man I grew up with, was the Andrew Garfield one. And I just think this movie does such a good job with the Spider-Man character. I love Spider-Man from the cartoons, the comics. I haven't really gotten much into the comics yet, but especially with the cartoons like Spectacular Spider-Man, I think that's my favorite iteration of Spider-Man. But this movie just nails Spider-Man's character so well. Just Andrew Garfield, he's easily the funniest Spider-Man in my opinion. He's got some of the best quips The whole scene in the first movie of him confronting the car thief is like one of the funniest Spider-Man moments in my opinion. I love his quips. I love the way he just like messes with his with this criminal and just like toys with them and is just kind of a prick to him in that sequence. It's very Spider-Man-y. I think like the one thing that does kind of hold it back is the lizard. I think that Reese Ifans as Doc Ock or as Dr. Connors is incredible. I think he gives a great performance as Connors. I really like the portrayal of Connors much more than I like Connors in the Raimi trilogy. I would be curious to see how the Raimi trilogy would have handled the lizard storyline, but I do really love what they do with Dr. Connors here, and the kind of I like that he ties to Oscorp in a way, and that he's basically forced to try the serum on himself because it's like a serum for healing Norman Osborn, which I know is a bit irreverent to the comics, but it works in the context of the movie. I do, even the lizard's plot, as dumb as it is. Everyone I've heard, it is pretty accurate to sometimes what his plot is in the comics of turning the city into lizards to kind of and it does fit with Connor's motivation in the movie where he is still wanting to create a world without weakness, and he views this lizard formula as the peak strength, and just like he almost views it as what the pinnacle of humanity could be, and he wants to kind of spread that to everybody else, which is an interesting idea. And there's I mean Toby Maguire, I mean no, Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. There's so many great moments with him. As I said, there's a lot of comedic moments, but there's also a lot of those, heartwarming moments with him, like the scene where he's saving that kid from the car hanging from the suspension bridge. That's one of the best Spider-Man moments in my opinion, where the kid's freaking out. He just takes off his mask and shows him like, "Hey, I'm a normal guy. Just you can trust me. I'll save you." And just like that's like the big, that big heroic moment for him that I think just works so well, and it works in kind of bringing him into that hero role that he really wasn't having at first because his sole motivation was to get revenge on Uncle Ben's killer. And I think that whole thing just played out so well. His chemistry with Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy is top notch. I mean, it helps that they were a real couple at the time, so you can just really feel their chemistry work so well because it's just their natural chemistry with each other. And I just think they're like Peter and Gwen are the best live action Spider-Man romance of all time. I know nostalgia blind people will say it's Peter and MJ in the Raimi trilogy, but no, MJ sucks in the Raimi trilogy. I hate to break it to you guys, but I just think yeah, Peter and Gwen just have such great chemistry with each other. Andrew Garfield is a very fun Peter Parker. I do really like his take on Peter. While it is definitely more of that like early 2010s, late 2000s cool guy persona in a little bit of the ways, like realistically, you wouldn't really see this guy being bullied. Like he doesn't really fit that kind of stereotype persona, like that nerd persona that Peter Parker has.
Yeah,
But
Clark
it
Duke
works
should have
well for
played
the
him.
movie he's in. What?
I said Clark Duke should have played him. You know what I'm talking about? The guy I'm joking, but, like, the guy from the final season of The Office who was, like, Dwight's little clone. I always thought that should have been, like like, the typecast for Peter Parker.
And but like I think the way that also I love the scene where he first discovers his powers. I think that's a really funny and like very like realistic way of like depicting what it probably would be like for someone to just to randomly discover superpowers. Where he's on the subway and he's like randomly sticking to things and like accidentally like rips, as weird as it is, he accidentally rips the woman's shirt off, and he's just like it's a comedy of errors basically. That whole sequence of him just like not knowing what's going on, and just his powers manifesting in ways that's just like leads him into very bad situations. But at the same time, despite the fact that he has like no confidence and no idea what he's doing, he somehow manages to beat these guys up. It's a very funny sequence. The whole stuff of this, like again, him first getting used to his powers and like ripping off like the faucet handles or like his like the keys sticking to his fingers when he's typing stuff out. It's just fun little stuff like that that just makes it a much more kind of I guess fun and realist and interesting way of showing a superhero getting used to their powers. And I just think everything about it as well. Andrew Garfield just did a phenomenal performance in this movie. Like he's easily the best Spider-Man actor out of the three. Like especially in like so with all the flaws of Amazing Spider-Man 2, like his performance in that movie, I think is even better than it is in this first one. The whole scene of Gwen Stacy's death in 2 is one of the most gut-wrenching moments because of Garfield's performance, and it feels how raw and real it feels. But yeah, I love Amazing Spider-Man. I think it's just again, it's a great movie, and I think it's definitely one that deserves more love than it gets.
Yeah, like I said earlier when we're talking about our, previous Spider-Man picks that we had early on. I think that Andrew Garfield, in my opinion, is the most accurate to the comics Peter that we've ever got. Not to say that we couldn't possibly get him back in the movies again, like I said as well, but I think that Andrew Garfield deserves a second shot at having his own films.
Mhm,
We can't control that Spider-Man 2 was a flop and people hated it because of other things that don't really pertain to him. I don't think he quite deserved that. And it never really sat right with me because, like you said, I actually really enjoyed that first Amazing Spider-Man movie too. Like, I thought that was a great way to rebrand the franchise. I thought that was like the probable best thing to go with at the time. Nowadays, I kind of wish that they maybe did one more Tobey Maguire movie. That's just me. But hindsight is 2020. Now that they know what they got wrong in that universe, maybe they can use the MCU and the tie-ins to go back to it and try to fix it.
mhm.
And then there you go. Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy's alive. It can go back to the drawing board for some characters and bring some new ones in. Why can't we get um this universe's version of Scorpion or Mysterio or
Mhm,
what have you, right? There's so many characters. I want to see, okay. Now I mentioned that I think that Miles Morales would be best in a Tobey Maguire film. If I had
mhm,
one villain I want to see done that I think's already been done by Sony already, sadly. But I want to see Andrew Garfield Spider-Man take on villains like the Spot or an
mhm.
actual Wilson Fisk Kingpin. It could be the Wilson Fisk we see in Daredevil. I don't care. But I want to see him take on Kingpin.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, because I think because they got his character as Peter down perfect, I think the biggest test to a film is putting Peter Parker head to head with the Kingpin. I think that's always been my biggest fascination and biggest one. Um, or you can put him up against Craven. I do not want Aaron Taylor Johnson's though. Give me something else.
No.
Anything else? Maybe who's that guy? The guy Joe Mantoliano or something. What his name is? Sofia Vergara's husband. The
I'm
guy
not
from
sure.
Frank.
I don't know.
He's like a rare guy. I always thought he would be a great Craven. Maybe his look. I don't know if he could pull off the accent though, but I think he would be a good start.
Yeah. I also would kinda be interested to see Venom in the Mark Webb universe.
What happened to Venom coming into the MCU proper?
Mhm.
What happened to this? I'm still waiting for that.
Yeah, the only thing we got was a post-credits scene in No Way Home, where he
I
just
know. Like,
gets sent
where
back
is
to
it,
his own
man?
universe.
I want to.
I mean,
I
to be
want to
fair
see
though,
this.
if we were to get MCU Venom, I would not want Tom Hardy's Venom. I would like a more traditional Venom, but
Oh, Topher Grace? I'm kidding. No, 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 keep that dead. No, no, it's not. No offense, Topher Grace, if you're out there watching, no. But no, please don't. We're good.
All right, so let's move on. What is your number 3?
Okay. Sizzling steak time. Sizzling steak. Okay, no, we're gonna talk. Um, I've loved this movie ever since I saw it as a kid. When I watched it today, I think that it has some minor flaws, but they're like forgivable for me. So on a personal rating, I'd give this like a perfect. But realistically, just not quite there. It's Ang Lee's Hulk.
Oh, interesting.
Interesting. Okay, so I know this movie's acquired taste. It is. Okay, look, the CGI in this movie is laughable. If you know anything behind the production of this movie, Ang Lee was basically told by Universal to like trim the movie down considerably. This was supposed to be like a 2.5 hour movie. I don't even know how long this thing is. Might actually be that. No, it's already 2 hours and 18 movie. 18 minutes. It must have been like 3 hours, his original cut time. But what happened was Universal was like, "No, we need to cut this, we need to reshoot that, blah, blah, blah." And that's why we got the hodgepodge of mess with, like, the CGI gamma ray dogs and stuff like that in the middle of the movie. A lot of context is missing from the original cut. And I've tried to watch the Frankenstein Together original Ang Lee vision for this film. This is something I want on my, personal want list. I've always wanted to see it in, like, its true form. But, to me, even with those problems, like, in the middle portion of the movie, mostly for me, um, I think that this film is a masterful take on, childhood trauma. I mean, like, it is like, when you look at it from a lens that this is an artistic metaphor for something deep, it hits a whole different way, man. Like, put aside that this is a Hulk movie. Hulk is supposed to go around smashing things. This is probably supposed to be more action focused. I would totally get that if you like, Edward Norton's Hulk movie. I get you. I get you. Abomination was great in that. I have no real complaints. But the reason why this is my Hulk movie, not because I grew up on it, right? I think that Ang Lee brought a lot of reverence to the original idea of the character that was birthed by Stan Lee. The whole Jekyll and Hyde monster aspect to his character, and like going into depth of Bruce Banner's, emotional, I want to say like the other movies don't do it, but in this movie specifically, we really do get a sense of this duality within him, this monster that's already in there. And yes, it does kind of tweak the lore with the whole um oh god, what's the character's name? He's played by Nick Nolte. Is it the Absorbing Man? The Absorbing
Yeah.
and tying the Absorbing Man as Bruce Banner's father. That's not really reverent to the comics all that much. And tying those things together. But the way it's tied together here is fascinating. I like the idea that the main villain of the story is somebody that's supposed to be a parent to the main character. I think that makes you think about things in a whole different light with this character and like what it means to be a good father, bad father, whatnot. And we see this struggle of like this being that he created artificially. His real son is the Hulk. It's not Bruce Banner. Bruce Banner is the I guess the outfit Hulk wears. This is the thing that people get wrong about this movie. I feel is that this is a movie where Bruce Banner is the costume being worn, not the Hulk. Okay, this is a movie about the gamma creature inside of Bruce. And if you look at it from that perspective, you can totally see why Bruce in the movie is constantly shaken up, constantly in turmoil, constantly the way he is with Jennifer Connelly's Betsy Ross. And the guy who plays Thunderbolt Ross in this, Sam Elliott, probably the most accurate Thunderbolt Ross we've gotten. And I know people have their opinions about, Harrison Ford and whatnot. But he's definitely my favorite Thunderbolt Ross that we've gotten. Yeah, having Danny Elfman compose the music for this was incredible. I don't hear anybody complain about the soundtrack of this movie. I mean, it's phenomenal. The editing in this movie is exquisite. It literally feels like a comic book. Like the editing, everything down to it too. It has a lot of stuff people don't give enough credit to. And honestly, there is more Hulk stuff that people give credit to, or I guess don't in historic fashion here. You have Bruce Banner in like a Grand Canyon. I think he's in the Grand Canyon. We're implied to be there when he's fighting those tanks and the helicopters. I thought that was the coolest shit when I was a kid. And I would constantly take my Hulk toys that were based on this film and try to recreate that. But yeah, as an adult watching, you can clearly tell that they had an interesting idea, but this is clearly an artistic director taking over a script that probably didn't have this stuff inserted beforehand. And I can kind of
Mhm.
see that this film ended up being a Frankenstein idea of an artistic filmmaker. The guy who made Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon of all movies, a beautiful martial arts epic masterpiece, and then you go and make this artsy fartsy comic book movie. It's a beautiful disaster. It's a beautiful disaster, really. And I totally get why you hate it, but I love it. That's why it's my number three.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting idea. I think my favorite Hulk movie is the Edward Norton one. I watched that pretty recently, and I think that's a great depiction of Hulk. But there is some fun to be had with the original Ang Lee version. It's definitely got its multitude of issues, but again, I think there are some fun moments. I do really like the way they framed like the first his first transformation into the Hulk, where it's like really darkly lit inside the house and things like that. I think that's a really well done sequence. I kind of it's a very Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of transformation sequence with Hulk that I really enjoy. But I think the second transformation when he's in the house in the middle of the day is very laughably bad. The effects look really bad. They're like the shaky cam and stuff, and the way like Eric Bana like his whole body like really goofily like shakes during that. Like there is some goofy stuff in here, the Gamma Dogs and things like that. But I can definitely see where you're coming from with it.
Like I said, like this is not a film that like I think you need to go in with the right mindset. Do you see what I'm talking about? Because if you don't, you're not gonna like it. You're not gonna like it all that much. I promise you. Because like I said, in that middle portion, there's a lot of goofy ass shit in there, and I don't think that was like Ang Lee's fault. I think that was the original script, and I think that and he was trying to incorporate that, so the studio didn't can him from the project. So say what you will, but his original vision apparently made all that stuff made more sense, and it was less crazy and chaotic than it came off in the movie. So until we see that vision, I guess we're gonna have to put in a pin in it. I'm like, this movie is my number three. But if that original vision comes out, it possibly could become a number one because who knows? It could change people's minds sometimes. And like
Mhm.
Zack Snyder's Justice League, I hated the theatrical version. I thought it was a chopped up mess. And then I saw his original vision. I'm like, okay, that was pretty epic. So, like I'm saying, Ang Lee's Hulk could be Zack Snyder's the next Zack Snyder's Justice League. Just give it a shot.
It is. All right, so now moving to my number three, and I'm not sure if this would be considered a hot take or not because I think there's a lot of people who do like this movie, but I think a lot of people retroactively hate this movie because of the movie that came after it. But my number three is Thor Ragnarok. I,
Okay.
I yeah, I freaking love this movie. I don't care what people say. Like in my opinion, it is the funniest MCU movie. I think it has I think it's like my favorite take on Chris Hemsworth's Thor character because I don't like the first two Thor movies at all. I think they're very bland and just kind of dull. But this movie is, very bright. It's colorful. I think there's just a lot of fun to be had in here. The whole plot line of Thor being sent to this gladiator planet and having to basically fight the Hulk. I think is just a really great little setup there. I think there's a lot of other. The thing is, well, it's not just a comedy movie. There is a lot of serious moments surrounding Hela. I think the whole Hela subplot is phenomenal in this movie. Hela is like honestly, Hela is like one of my top five favorite MCU villains. I think that I think it's Blanchett. I think is who plays her. I think she does a great performance. She's a very serious, menacing, dark villain. The fact that this whole story, like Odin dying, and that's all that was needed to awaken her. And then she just comes and is wanting to just take over Asgard and is just ruling with this cruel iron fist. And I think it's just a really interesting idea for a villain. And I think it works very well and adding those serious moments to it. So it's not just, all about comedy the whole movie. I think the comedy works very well. Love, I think obviously Thor and Loki's dynamic is always great, but I think it's probably the best in this movie, in my opinion. This the whole scene of like when Hulk was flinging Thor around like he did the Loki in the first Avengers, and Loki is like cheering and like saying like that's how it feels. Like I love that scene. It's like one of like I feel like I don't know. Tom Hiddleston's performance in this movie is great. Just like his immediate terror upon seeing the Hulk first enter during that gladiator fight was really great. And a whole get help joke. I love the get help joke in there. And I just think that's a very fun dynamic between the two of them. I like the new characters that are introduced. Like I think Valkyrie is a really interesting character. I think she's very well done in this movie. The character who's having dealing with a tragic backstory and is as a result kind of burying that guilt and sadness down with alcohol and just kind of living on Sakaar. I think is a really interesting idea. And then her having to kind of rise to the occasion at the end to defeat Hela. And even the serious implications at the end, where they basically the only way to defeat Hela is to cause Ragnarok and destroy Asgard, and they have to kind of just go and find a new place. And I think the ending of that movie is also very bittersweet when you see them all on the ship, when you know what happens to them in the beginning of Infinity War. I think it has some really, like, again, bittersweet kind of dark implications where you know when you actually know what happens to them later on. And I just think, it's a very great visuals in the movie. And I think Hulk is really funny in this movie. I think it's probably my favorite version of MCU Hulk, where it's kind of that balance of raging Hulk, but also kind of that comedic kind of big baby style Hulk that I think works very well and is just very funny. And it's a great characterization of Hulk from some of the stuff I've seen, where he's not just, a big shouty raging monster. He can talk and he can, have dialogue and things like that. And I just like that interpretation. And overall, yeah, I just think this movie is a very fun movie. I always have loved it. I know some people may not be so hot on it, especially because of, them letting Taika Waititi go full bore with Thor: Love and Thunder and how, that movie turned out. But I think, I think he was very much reined in this movie where he still had a fun sense of humor, but he wasn't like, he wasn't let loose, and there was still that kind of restraint that they kind of showed with him.
Yeah, I think given the first 3 Thor movies and even the 4th one, Ragnarok is clearly the best one, and it's not even close for the other 3 movies. Like,
Mhm,
it's like, I thought the first Thor movie I'm gonna be honest, dude, I thought that movie was really boring.
mhm.
I thought it wasn't all that interesting, even though I think that's the one that introduces the Cosmic Cube, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe that's,
I think so.
yeah,
A Tesseract?
that's right,
Yeah.
yes. That was kind of needed for the context because early MCU was trying to lead the breadcrumbs for the first Avengers movie, right?
Mhm,
And then the second one, Dark World, was kind of bad, and then
mhm.
Love and Thunder was also kind of bad. So Ragnarok being like a genuinely good movie makes it stand out in the memory for that. For me, I loved the Valkyrie character in this film. I thought she was really fun. I remember when Planet Hulk was revealed in the arena, I was like, "Oh, we're in for a treat," because now I know what Planet Hulk is like. And then once we get like the side character, what's his name, like Gore or something,
Korg?
Korg, yo, dude, he was hilarious.
Mhm.
Uh, the whole gladiator aspect and like basically being like kind of like a space opera version of Russell Crowe's Gladiator, but MCU's take with the MCU style writing on it was really fun. It was a fun film for the time. It was a good like decompression film in the sequence order of films coming out at the time too. I was like, when we got to Ragnarok, we are like, oh, thank God we get a break. So we get something like we get something with good old pal Thor. Um, and I guess now we're getting a Thor 5, so maybe they'll look to this movie for inspiration. I don't know. I highly doubt it.
Let's hope.
Let's hope. Um, yeah, great pick, man. Great pick.
Alright, so let's move on to your top 2 now.
Okay, so my top two are the only two superhero films I genuinely believe are perfect. I think these two films are flawless to me. Now that's subjective, obviously. But
Mhm.
my number two goes to Captain America: Winter Soldier. Fantastic movie. Fantastic. I don't know what else to say about this film that other people haven't said. I see everybody online saying that this is clearly, if it's not the best solo MCU movie, it's definitely top three contender. Like we're talking about solo character movies. What a Soldier is that film that kind of brings a multitude of genres together. You got spy thriller, you got crazy action, superhero action, you got espionage, you got plots to destroy the panhandle essentially. And you have all these riveting aspects to the main story, I guess, and trying to find out the answers involving a certain plot point there. But most of it's actually, Steve feeling that remorse of losing his friend Bucky and realizing that he's gone to the enemy side and how far gone he is gone from the Bucky that he knew. And now he's going to make it his personal mission to save his former best friend because he feels like he owes it to him. I love that for Captain America. I think Steve Rogers. Say what you will about Chris Evans, say what you will about Captain America as a character. He should have had way more content in the MCU. I think it put it up, I don't even count Brand New Day. I don't count this movie, okay? I'm talking about the first three Captain America movies. I think that that is the best trilogy next to Guardians in the MCU. Say what you will about other things. Some people might say Spider Man. Some people might say, I don't know, the Avengers. But to me, it's Captain America. And like I said, there should have been an Invaders movie. Captain America should have been in like 6 movies by the time we got to Winter Soldier, if you ask me. But you know, this is, I think, this was right after Paramount officially. I think this was like one of the first movies where Paramount officially joined forces with Disney on this. Like they went like all in. So this is like full fledged MCU now. And you can clearly tell that they were like trying to put pedal to the metal with this plot. Um, yeah, I don't know what else to say. I mean, this is just one of those movies like you watch it and you understand, like, yeah, this is a great fucking film. Like this is just like genuinely like almost damn near flawless. If I had any negatives, it'll be certain nitpicks with certain, I guess, moments or jokes in the movie. Other than that, like those are just nitpicks at the end of the day. So
Yeah. I don't know. I have the hot take here. I'm not the biggest Captain America fan. I think he's kind of a boring character. To be fair, his style of movies is not my thing. I'm not a big fan of like political espionage, spy thriller stuff. Like that's just not my thing. So I definitely acknowledge it's a great film in terms of like, filmmaking and all that stuff. But just due to my personal preference, I'm just not a big fan of it. I love Civil War, but that's like the only Captain America film I've really gotten into. Again, not to take anything away from the quality of the movie, but again, it just doesn't appeal to me personally.
I mean, yeah, the thing about Captain America is that he's of a bygone era of hero. Like he's the problem with Captain America. I think they were even having this problem when Stanley and Jack Kirby revamped Marvel in the '60s, bringing back Cap from the Golden Age. So Captain America was a character that was a beat 'em up. I mean, he was a forthright American. I mean, all he did was beat up the Japanese and beat up the Nazis, right? But you bring him to a modern era. What are you going to do with Captain America now? You got to try to humanize him. Oh, you got to build on his mythos. Peggy Carter, this, build on Bucky, and then I think genuinely when Captain America got like super good was the Ed Brubaker era of the character in the comics. The whole arc when Winter Soldier was reintroduced in that I think third volume of the character, not that second volume or Signal of Liberty crap. I'm talking about the third volume where Winter Soldier first appeared. That is some of the best Captain America I've ever read, and honestly might be the best Captain America run of all time. Um, and it totally taught me how deep you can actually make Steve Rogers. Because Steve Rogers, in the comics at least, struggles with trying to maintain of being the poster child of America, being this exemplary figure when he's flawed really deep down to his core. He has this super serum that makes him a hero, but that's only a mask he wears. Like obviously, like when he's taking off the mask, he puts the world on his shoulders, trying to constantly prove to everyone that he's worthy of having this serum and this gift he was given. He struggles with those things. I think that's what makes him compelling. You don't really see that in Winter Soldier, but what is the through line there is the stuff they did with Winter Soldier in the comics. And I think it was honestly probably one of the more truly faithful adaptations that I've seen in the MCU when it comes to that too. So that's also another reason why I really love it. But yeah, I love Winter Soldier when it came out. I saw it the weekend of release. I think I was at Disney when I saw it, believe it or not.
Wow.
But that was a fun experience. Maybe that might have something to do with the holidays. But that was really fun.
All right. So now moving on to my number two, and I mentioned before. I mentioned this before. We were talking about Dark Knight and Batman movies. That this is my favorite Batman movie, and this maybe I might be controversial to some people who again think Christopher Nolan or the Matt Reeves movies are like God's gift to mankind in terms of Batman movies. but this will always be my favorite Batman movie, and that, of course, is Batman 1989. I adore this movie, especially after a rewatch a couple days ago. This is just such a phenomenal movie, in my opinion. It embraces the tone of the comics so well. I think Tim Burton's style fits Gotham City and just the world of Batman flawlessly. I love Burton's Gotham and this how it's very, gothic architecture and very just dark and steamy and just like it feels very much like a crime city and just kind of seedy city where you wouldn't want to live. And I think that just matches that kind of comic booky aesthetic so well. There's a lot of really like fun kind of over the top architecture styles in there, like random like statues and things like that. That just works so well. I love like Michael Keaton's my favorite Batman. Like I think without a doubt, Michael Keaton is my definitive Batman. And it's really funny because when this movie was first coming out, everybody hated the idea of Keaton as Batman because of for reasons A or B or whatever, but he ended up proving everybody wrong, I feel like, because this dude is the only Batman that we've gotten in live action where you actually feel a difference between Bruce Wayne and Batman. They are different personas that he lives to the point where you wouldn't really think when you see Bruce Wayne, you wouldn't really think he's Batman because he has such a different kind of, he's so different. They lean into more of that, the playboy rich guy persona, who's that kind of philanthropist. He loves doing charity events and things like that, which is what's the point of Bruce Wayne. I love just his chemistry with I think it's Kim Basinger as Vicky Vale. I can't remember exactly the actress's name, but whoever played Vicky Vale, his chemistry with her is very good. I think that all the side characters are very fun, like Vicky Vale and Knox, and just some of those characters. I really enjoy watching them. And but for me, the standout of the movie is Jack Nicholson's Joker. I love Nicholson's Joker so much. This is like he was born to play this role, in my opinion. You could just tell he had so much fun in this role, and he was just hamming it up for the camera. His laugh is iconic and just is my favorite Joker laugh. I love the look. I love the way they interpreted his smile, where it's just like severed nerve endings in a botched plastic surgery that gave him this forced permanent smile. It's such a genius way to adapt that idea from him. And I think, his I kind of like the idea of him being like an artist and kind of having this obsession with art and things like that. It's a little I don't know if that's really a big thing in the comics, but I think it's a fun little addition whether it was there or not. Him like, putting normal like, skin color makeup on his face to look normal and for people has some great moments to it. And like just some like really clever little effects too, like where, when he's in the boardroom after killing the other head of the mob guy with this joy buzzer, and he's like, it's supposed to be him just, wiping the normal makeup away, but in reality, he's just wiping white makeup onto his forehead.
Yeah.
I think that's just such a clever, like, way of doing that. Or just, the scene like in the museum where he has like the makeup melting off of his face and you see the white underneath is such a fun look. All those little like trick gadgets and things like that with the really long handgun that he shoots down the Batwing with, or the joy buzzer, and just the laughing gas that he uses contaminating the beauty products is a very fun way of doing
Yeah.
things. It's such a it's honestly somewhat of a diabolical plot when you think about it, where it's not you have to. It only works if you mix certain things together to the point where you have no idea what you using is safe or not is a
Yeah.
really, like, clever idea for a Joker plot, and I just think his dichotomy with Batman with Bruce Wayne and Michael Keaton is really great. And honestly, I know this is a hot take, but I even like the change of having him be the one to kill Bruce's parents. I know that's something a lot of people don't like, but for me, I think it works in a way because it makes Joker and Batman's ties a bit more personal, and I think just makes their dynamic a bit more interesting. And the idea of they made each other, and I think I just really like that idea behind it. I just think it works so well, and I don't know, I just love everything about this movie. Danny Elfman's score is great. It's a flawless movie in my opinion.
Yeah. I will say that I like the point that you brought up about Joker taking the life of Bruce's parents because as a kid, I watched this movie before I ever read the comics, and I thought that that was the origin for years. And then when I found out it wasn't, I'm like, well, that's so much better. Huh, why didn't they just stick with that? Because Joker is Batman's arch nemesis. Let's be real.
Mhm.
He has tons of villains. He has probably the most iconic rogues gallery of all time. The only other rogues gallery that comes close is Superman, Spider-Man, and the Flash. Okay,
Mhm.
we get it. But holy crap, this film pulled the impossible with Joker and like trying to like humanize him in a way that I don't think I've seen in this kind of way, other than like you have to really hunt for it in the comics in film. Maybe you could say that Joaquin Phoenix's movies like that, but like that's almost like Rob Zombie's take on Michael Myers. Almost, I feel.
Mhm.
Okay. Uh, so it is what it is there. But I do think that this like I talked about me liking Tim Burton's movies. I love Batman and Batman Returns. I think those films are fantastic double feature. Like if you just want to like spend some time watching some superhero movies on a Friday night, put 89 and Returns on and you'll be having a blast. I think both films do things completely different to be really great. I think the thing about 89 is that 80 there's something about the vibe of Gotham, I think that is perfect in the movie. There's something about
Mhm.
the it just sucks you in from the get-go. You're like, "Okay." And you get caught with the Vicky Vale stuff, and, you get to meet the Harvey Dent I think Harvey Dent's in this movie, you meet Billy D. Williams playing Harvey Dent in
Yep.
this, right? So, like, you get established in this world that he's trying to build, and you meet all these characters in like, this is a film, like, you can't really say this a lot about superhero films in the first movie, but you can tell that there's this emphasis that we're going to be dealing with these characters in more movies. Like
Mhm.
there's no idea in your mind that's like, maybe they can continue this on and they can do this. No, like you kind of know that that's the intention. They want to give you certain things to build on, like the breadcrumbs of making Two Face, or the breadcrumbs of Vicky Vale doing this, or going this direction with the story. I can see it now. Batman Returns. I don't know what happened there, but I guess maybe he just wanted to make a Christmas Batman movie. I don't know,
Mhm.
but still, like as standalone movies on their own right, 89 is fantastic, and Returns is fantastic in my opinion. I hate what the Flash did. I hate what the Flash did to Michael Keaton, even though there's some parts of that movie I really love because he's in it. But that just shows you that like every movie these days is trying to capitalize on nostalgia and trying to bring back things for longtime fans to get them in the seats. And that was a misfire there. And I don't know. I think Keaton's way too old to play Batman now. Maybe he could play Batman in the Batman Beyond film
Mhm.
series. And I think a lot of people have brought that up. Like, bring back Keaton as Bruce Wayne, but he's Batman Beyond's Bruce Wayne. That'd be incredible.
Mhm.
Now, who would we play? Who would we pick to play Terry McGinnis? I don't know. But if you ask me, I think Batman Beyond's my favorite cartoon, even though I know Beach House is a popular series, and even the Batman and Robin Adventures, really good series too. Batman Beyond's my Batman cartoon. I'm sorry, uh, but that's just me. I would love to see Keaton take control of this character again and do a take on Batman Beyond.
Yeah. I think, like, my only nitpick about this movie that I don't really like is that they kill Joker at the end. Because,
Yeah,
like, I mean, to be fair, that's just a trend in superhero movies, like, since the beginning. For some reason, they like to introduce the arch nemesis in the first movie and then kill them off right away. It's just it doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't know why they do that. I'm not sure if it's just because they don't wanna have that lingering thread later on or what, but
they don't want to keep paying actors to come back.
probably
Every time they gotta pay the superhero to come back.
Mhm.
So and plus a lot. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. Batman '89, same thing with Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies and a lot of movies that came out. They were intrinsically tied to toy lines, ad promotions, cereal boxes. Everybody knows Batman '89 cereal for God's sake. They were trying to sell merch. You can't go into a sequel with the same villain, same characters,
Mhm.
just sell more of the same merch. That's not going to work.
Right.
So what they would do, they would triple dip back in the day. The studios, they'd be working in tandem with toy lines, who would be working in tandem with advertising agencies, and they all work together and be like, look, if we release this movie here, this is around the holiday season. People are going to be out shopping. They can buy this toy for their kid, blah, blah, blah. Oh, Batman Returns. Let's make it a Christmas movie so we can put it right around Christmas and we can flood the market with Batman toys and we can flood the market with Batman commercials and all this crap and kids will buy it. Oh, yeah, that's why they did what they did. You know, it's just the law of the land back in the day. I mean, they
Yeah.
have to sell toys with the movie.
I do like the even though it sucks that he gets killed. I do like it. It's almost the thematic element of Bruce getting to see the killer of his parents get his comeuppance. I do like that idea behind it.
I loved the comic adaptation of the film. Not the '89 spinoff comic, but I'm talking about the original comic adaptation, if you've ever read that, because I think the comic actually makes that thing feel more epic than the film does. I think there's some awkward things about the helicopter finale. Okay, I'm just like, "All right, you know what? Like, this doesn't." I mean, Tim Burton is the master of, like, making things that are on a set look like it's actually, like, pretty much bigger scale than it actually is. That's probably one of my bigger nitpicks of the movie is, like, the final 15 minutes.
Mhm.
But I don't hate that Joker died per se, because in the context of this film's story, it's kinda cathartic for Bruce to see the end
Mhm.
of his parents' killers, because now if he puts that behind him, he can learn how to improve and be a better Batman now that that vengeance inside of him is gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He no longer has to hold on to that. And that's why I think, honestly, you get a completely different Bruce in Returns, almost, where he's trying to help Catwoman.
Mhm.
He's trying to help. Well, he doesn't know that I think she's Catwoman for majority of it, but he can tell that something's off. He's like he has his Batman senses. I mean, come on. But he's trying to help, and but he doesn't know that he's kind of being played not only by her but by Christopher Walken's character.
Yeah.
And Oswald Cobblepot. Obviously he's like the out in front guy. But him tackling the characters the way he does in that is something that he wouldn't have been able to do if he did his anal Joker, I feel, in the way he did in the first movie.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
All right, anyways, so let's move on now. What is your number 1?
All right, my number one. I don't think this is going to shock anybody because I know this is easily in the top five most popular horror superhero films of all time. Um, I personally think that this kind of transcends the superhero genre in a couple ways. It's not just that. It's almost like Martin Scorsese made a X-Men movie. You might be knowing where I'm going with this. It's Logan. Logan's my number one. Here's the thing. Old Man Logan, say what you will about I think Mark Millar wrote that series from Marvel back in the day. Say what you will about Old Man Hawkeye and all the other spinoffs that happened with that. I think using the Old Man Logan storyline for the Fox characters here, for this being the swan song for Hugh Jackman at the time, was epic and was saddening, but I had no idea that the movie itself was going to be like Oscar bait almost. I'm surprised it didn't win one, honestly, because the story's so good. I mean, you have Logan figuring out that he has a daughter made with his DNA, and him going through that whole turmoil of like coming to grips that he's a dad, kind of. Not really though, but he's a dad nonetheless, and he's going to have to figure out how to save all these lives, or what have you in the movie. I don't want to give too much spoilers on these, by the way. Even though I'm known as a spoiler guy, I don't want to do that with this. So like, you know, the whole twists and turns with, dealing with Laura and, Professor X being along for the ride kind of felt like, Laurie Strode and Dr. Loomis, but it's Wolverine and Professor X. And I love Patrick Stewart. Honestly, I think this might be my favorite role of Patrick Stewart as Professor X in any of the X-Men movies too. And how dark it got at some points in the movie was really shocking to me. Like the whole scene where they're at the house and they're trying to get him like essentially taken and abducted, knowing that that there's certain carryover events from other Wolverine movies that you kind of have to know some context that plays into the role of the villains of this. But yeah, they were fantastic. Um, and then coming after Logan, and then leading to that epic showdown near the end, and him with his daughter being around the people that he loved the most, breathing his last breath. I literally cried like a baby in the theater when I saw that the first time. I think everybody was. I legit had to take a tissue. It was
Wow.
so emotionally riveting. I cannot think of a better ending for a character in a franchise than what Logan did. It was a swan song. It felt like I said, it felt like a Martin Scorsese film. The closest thing I can say it kind of felt like it's like if we took aspects of Mad Max and No Country for Old Men, and then you blended it with Hugh Jackman's X-Men universe, right? I mean, that's what that the movie felt like. Riveting drama, riveting character stuff, genuine emotions, real stakes involved. Incredible film, 10 out of 10 all day. Honestly, I have no nitpicks with the film. I really don't. I can't think of a single thing that I can say against the film. So that's why it's my favorite.
Yeah, this is honestly a movie I haven't really seen. I haven't seen many of the X-Men movies, honestly. I think I've seen First Class, and that's it.
Do you like I mean, I really like a lot about First Class. I think that's probably one of
Yeah.
my favorite X-Men sequels, if not my favorite one behind Logan.
Yeah, I think First Class is pretty good. I'd be curious to check out some of the X-Men stuff. X-Men has never been a series of characters that have intrigued me all that much, but to be fair, the Fox universe is my only exposure to that. I haven't really seen the animated series or any of that stuff, so
Well, you don't have to watch First Class again because obviously there's like really no Wolverine in it. But I would recommend that you watch the Hugh Jackman Wolverine movies that came before before you get to Logan, and that includes X Men Origins, which I think they retconned out of canon. It's kind of midway through, so I mean, it's weird because Deadpool existed when I think Logan came out. So if Deadpool existed, that means Wolverine Origins couldn't exist. So,
Mhm.
you have to kind of just go with it. But watch all the Hugh Jackman movies before you watch Logan, and you'll be all right.
All right, so I feel like this might be my probably hottest take because it's a movie that I feel like I've seen a lot of people criticize about it for things like that, and I get it has its flaws. It's objectively has flaws with it, but to me, it has delivered everything I wanted because it is adapting my favorite Marvel comic characters of all time, and I don't care if it's called recency bias, but my number one is Fantastic Four First Steps. I just I freaking loved this movie. Everything about it. I saw this movie three times in theaters, which is something I don't do very often. I just think that as someone who has loved these characters for quite a long time, I grew up with the cartoons and even the 2000s movies. And I started reading the comics in anticipation for this movie. And just I've always loved these characters ever since I was young. And, looking back at them now, having more knowledge on the characters, the 2000s movies didn't really deliver on what I wanted from these characters. They're very bland service level versions of the characters that were very like based in 2000s stereotypes, especially Chris Evans as Johnny. And it's like, and then of course, especially the 2015 abomination that exists that, we just do not talk about, but that movie just get everything wrong. Like it's just these movies did not understand who the Fantastic Four were. It didn't really show any reverence to the comics. So First Steps coming out and just showing such a love and passion for the source material and pulling from so many different eras of Fantastic Four. The aesthetic of Jack Kirby, the characterizations from Hickman, and just there's so many different things here and there that just work so well in this movie. And it's not only a love letter to Fantastic Four, but it's a love letter to Jack Kirby. And just everything they do with that is so well done. I love even them giving like Stan and Jack like little cameos during the scene where Silver Surfer comes down for the first time and they're in their little comic studio. That was a really great homage. And the big thing that they needed to get down for me was the characters, because I love these characters and no other movie has really gotten them right. And to me, anyways, they did them perfectly. Say what you want about Pedro Pascal. No, does he look like Reed Richards? No, but he played the hell out of that role, and he is pretty much personified Reed Richards for me. I think Vanessa Kirby nailed it as Sue Storm, and her and Pedro have such great chemistry as Reed and Sue, and they really felt like a real couple. And there's so many sequences of them, having these dialogues that just really felt raw, like the whole argument scene they have when Reed is basically like contemplating giving Franklin up to Galactus for the sake of sparing the Earth, and Sue is just upset with him and literally tells him, and Reed's explaining like, "This is just my job. I don't want to do this. I never would actually give up Franklin, but it's my job to think of these things so the bad things don't happen to us." And Sue just responds with, "That's not your job, Reed. That's you." And just like, I love Reed's dialogue in that sequence where he says, "You're right, that is me. I don't dream, I don't wonder. I invite the worst possible thing into my head so it prevent them to prevent so we can hurt them before they hurt anybody else." And I think that is just like the perfect personification of Reed as a character. And it just embodies who he is, where he's this man with the weight out of the world on his shoulders, who is constantly feeling this guilt of what happened to them in their first cosmic ray incident and how it affected their lives, especially, of course, with Ben, and just how it altered him forever. And he just feels so like weighed down on that to the point where he doesn't want to go back into space again. And he's like with Johnny constantly pestering him about going back into space. And Reed just he doesn't want to do it because he's almost afraid of things maybe getting worse if they went back up there from what they already were. And I just love that idea for his characterization. I love how Sue is this very, the very protective motherly figure of the group that actually showcases her power levels much more accurately to the comics than any other film did. I think that, her dynamic with Joseph Quinn as Johnny was phenomenal. I love Joseph Quinn as Johnny. He is my favorite part of the movie. He just has that, cocky hothead persona that Johnny has, but it also showcases his intelligence. It showcases, how smart he really is as a person and what he's capable of. And there's a reason he went up to space with them. And it shows that with him, deciphering Silver Surfer's language and and just doing this in the background completely kind of unknown by the rest of the group because he wants to prove himself and show that he is more valuable than what the rest of the group thinks of him sometimes.
Mhm.
And that was such a good thing. And the whole scene of him confronting Silver Surfer in the middle of the city with all of the messages of her past and showing like, yes, you saved these are all messages from your planet that you saved, but these other planets were not lucky, and you led Galactus to these planets, and they all had to suffer and die. And that was just such a good scene, just him just having this moment of like confronting her with her sins, and he's kind of the reason she changed and became better as a result. I think Evan Moss Backrack does an amazing job as Ben Grimm. While I do agree he could have used some more scenes, I think that his characterization of Ben was pitch perfect. The big, the tough guy with the heart of gold. He's the kind of he's the heart of the group. He is he's a very even though he looks monstrous, he's just deep down like the nicest person you'll ever meet. Just a very very friendly and personable. I think his dynamic with Johnny is very fun. And I think this is much more enjoyable than what Chris Evans and Michael Chiklis was, where they were much more just like mean towards each other. I really like that they portrayed like these new versions portrayed them much more brotherly and much more as friends, where Johnny is more just the annoying little brother kind of idea. I think that again, the whole family dynamic between the whole cast was phenomenal. I love the retro futuristic 60s aesthetic they went with for the movie. It's just so different for the MCU. And it's such a breath of fresh air from the stale visuals I feel like the MCU has had for so long. And Michael Giacchino's score is also phenomenal. It's probably my favorite superhero movie score of all time. The CGI is impeccable, especially the whole space sequence is one of my favorite MCU sequences of all time. Just the Silver Surfer chase and them escaping Galactus and them encountering Galactus. Ralph Ineson, I also think was phenomenal in the role. While again, he could have used some more screen time. I do think he was great. He had a great voice for Galactus. The look was awesome. And I honestly love the final fight. I know it could have maybe been a little bit more climactic, but I do think what they did with it was very creative and really well done. I like the way they utilized their powers a lot, even though they could have used a couple more action sequences. But I do like that the movie focuses more on family and focuses on the characters because that is the core of what Fantastic Four are. They're Marvel's first family. So I feel like that's the most important thing you need to nail down with these characters. And to me, they did it flawlessly. And despite the movie having some flaws, I still adore it.
You know, I'm glad that you really love this movie because I think that this movie surprised the hell out of me. I loved a lot about it. Personally, though, I know this is supposed to take place in a different universe than the most of the MCU. I would have still done Super Stroll as the first villain. I would not have just immediately dumped Galactus and
Mhm,
Silver Surfer into the mix the first movie. That should have been something you had to wait for, you know?
mhm,
Personally, I mean, you have the Eternals out there. I mean, I know, like I said, different universe, but there's ways you can do this. And the space and the cosmos of the MCU to even put into perspective the comics, right? There's so many things like the Void, Asgard, the Frost Giant realm. You have all these different things coalescing, multiverses and stuff like that. Galactus is just one aspect of one universe, right?
mhm,
So I would have started small scale to get to know the team more, to get to see them have more action in a Fantastic Four movie. Talk about people hate on Hulk for being a drama filled movie. If you hate Hulk for being that, you're probably not going to like Fantastic Four First Steps. I can name maybe on two hands, I mean, on two instances in this movie where I would say there was legitimately fighting going on with the team. To me, I think I have more problems than you do with it. Like the whole, like honestly, I'm not a fan with the material they gave Ben Grimm in this movie. Ben
mhm,
Grimm is more than just the Yancey Street loner, right? He's not just he's
yeah,
not some type that just wanders the street and thinks about nostalgia in his childhood. Most of the time, he's into the blind woman in the comics.
mhm,
I think it was Alicia Masters or something like that.
yep,
Um, Here, he's with Natasha Lyonne's character, and they give him like a crush storyline, but they don't really build onto Ben Grimm's character, and or even more so in the comics. At least the original Fantastic 2000 Fantastic Four 2005 movie, and even Fan Four Stick kind of kept this idea congruent with Reed specifically, and that he feels the most guilt with Ben, and he spends a
mhm,
lot of the time in the stories in the comics trying to help Ben and fix him. There's even a comic, it's a very iconic one called "What If the Hulk Went Berserk." Turns out, in that "What If," Reed found a way to save Ben, right? And Ben was like, "All right, you know what? Yeah, I'll go with this." And it kind of weakened him, trying to help him. So when he went to go fight Hulk, it made it easier to kill him because he didn't have his complete form there. So it's a blessing and a curse. But still, like they kind of tinker with that idea in the 2005 movie where Reed spends majority of the movie trying to help Ben because he's like, all of us at least look normal with our powers. Ben looks like a freaking monster. It
mhm,
looks like this destroyed Ben's confidence. It destroyed Ben's personal life and home life. That's what I kind of wanted out of this. I wanted to see a more updated take on that. And I don't mind what they did with Sue and Johnny in this. I agree. Johnny, he was given more intelligence than the previous movies did, which is a service to him. And Sue becoming like the pregnant mom and whatnot to Franklin, also trying to speed run Franklin being put into the MCU so they can use him as a get out of jail free card from whatever trouble they get into in Avengers Doomsday, probably, if I had to guess. But even though the writing's on the wall with that, I think that Sue's biggest character trait in the comics is that she always feels like she has something to prove. She has something to bring to the table that, Reed's not listening to her, or, Reed's discrediting her when she's just as important, if not probably one of the more key components of the team. And while you do see that, you do see her ability to negotiate with the public, and her relationship with the public's very touching in this film. I wanted more of the team dynamic. I didn't want to see, so many scenes of them just talking in like personalized relationships with each other. No, we wanted I wanted the Fantastic Four team. I mean, we
Mhm.
kinda got that when they went to space in that section of the movie with it, and the flashbacks of it, the flashbacks of them fighting, Mole Man and, Subterranea, I thought that was really fun. That had a very, James Gunn-esque to it, where he's like they're trying to throw in so much world building into this one little
Mhm.
universe. I love that part. But, I kinda wish that we had like I said, I think Super Skrull would have been the perfect villain because they he has abilities from all 4 members. He can he can shapeshift and blend in. He can use the team to go against each other, and they can learn to be a family. Maybe then after that, once they learn how to be a better team, you can go into Franklin and go into that. I
Mhm.
wouldn't have started with Galactus personally, but I don't hate that they started here. I just hope that they don't shoot themselves in the foot moving forward with this trilogy, or if they plan on making at least 3 movies, with running out of iconic Fantastic Four villains. Because there's honestly, outside of Galactus and Silver Surfer, there's not that many left. So
Mhm.
unless you're going into villains that go across multiple characters. And I heard that they're bringing Nova into the mix and finally bringing the Nova Corps in. So hopefully, if they go the direction I think they're going to go, this can help tie in some more cosmic beings to make that
Mhm.
Kirby love letter tie in better. But we'll see.
Yeah. Like, I would love to see for a sequel, but I know the big theory I would love to see is Annihilus as the villain of the sequel.
Annihilus will be perfect because he debuted in the exact comic that Franklin debuted in too. So like, they both appeared in the first appearance in the same issue. Annihilus would be a fun villain. He's kind of like another Galactus type, um, except a little more down. I want to say as cosmic-y, Jack Kirby as
Yeah.
well.
And I think it'd be interesting to have the whole movie set in the negative zone and maybe have it where like the negative zone is affecting their powers and like causing their powers to go into overdrive. So they have to like figure out a way to work together and work with their new kind of overly exerted powers to help fix defeat Annihilus. I think we kind of a cool idea.
Yeah,
Or like
and
yeah, I think also what
actually having a manageable threat that the team can actively go after, and I would hope that they go into the more action focused next movie
mhm,
with that, because I would feel like, I would take a Fantastic Four movie set in the negative zone, or hell, even entirely in space, like Guardians, as
mhm,
long as there is some sort of objective to get there. I feel like we got to know the characters enough in this movie in the banter. We don't
mhm.
need every movie to be, Reed talking about how he feels about something to Sue for 10
Right.
you know, I get this as expository information. You kind of need all this to establish the characters. But that's probably my biggest critique to the film as a whole. Not saying like
Yeah.
I don't hate this movie, y'all. I really love it in a lot of ways, but that's just one thing that I would have personally not have gone with.
Yeah, and there's again, as I said, yeah, it's not a perfect movie by any means, like critically speaking, but just for what I was looking for in a Fantastic Four movie, it delivered.
Yeah, I mean, like it has all the bells and whistles of a tried and true Fantastic Four story. Silver Surfer, Galactus, Baby Franklin being OP. The only thing that was missing was the Medusa and She-Hulk cameos as potential fill-ins for Ben Grimm or Sue Thorne. Which I'm honestly shocked that they kept Sue as a member while she was pregnant. I was like thinking in my head when I saw the movie, like, oh, are they gonna bring in the Inhumans? Are they gonna bring in Medusa? That'd be fun to do.
It
I was like, because
would
if they
be.
bring in Medusa as a replacement, that would be so cool. Because it happened in the comics. It didn't happen, but still, the options there. The Inhumans. Hello, bring Black Bolt.
Yeah, I think
Let's
I think I'm not sure if there's. I don't know if we are getting Inhumans project. I hope we do it some way. That'd be kind of cool. But like, I think one thing I'm excited for in future movies is like once obviously Secret Wars happens and you get them all reverting to one universe again. I'm excited to see the Fantastic Four interact with characters like Spider-Man and She-Hulk and some of those characters who they have very intrinsic ties with in the comics.
Yeah, I've always found the Fantastic Four fascinating on that front because they're willing to rotate people in and out of the team. There's even a
Mhm.
team where there was like a comic series where the Fantastic Four actually had to go off to a distant planet to do something. So a team just assumed together. I think it was like Spider-Man, a
Mhm.
Hulk, Wolverine, and like there was like the dream team of Marvel superheroes all in one team. I was like, man, if this was the actual team, this would be just too stacked.
Yeah.
I was thinking that.
All right. So that's it. That's our top 10 comic book movies, guys. So I just want to thank you all so much for watching. And, hope you guys enjoyed this very long video. But I hope you guys found our talking points interesting and hope you still enjoyed, even if it was just a lot of talking. But, thank you, Austin, for coming on again. It's always awesome to, talk about this stuff with you and do collabs.
Absolutely. I love doing these, talking about comic book things. If you ever want to do another comic book related tag video, or if you ever want to do like another collab or something, feel free to ask, man. So
Yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely. So yeah. So again, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and please make sure to go subscribe to Austin's channels, Horror Free for All, and if you want to check out Austin in the Middle, you definitely can. Um, and also, of course, please subscribe to this channel. Obviously, this is a new channel, so we're starting everything new again. If you like this content, hope you want to see more. Please guys do to subscribe. But again, just thank you all so much for watching. It always is appreciated, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See you guys.
Take care. The past.